Hello everyone, my name is Notepad Anon and I write games for fun, but we're not writing any games today. We're going to be looking at a few though. And those particular games belong to a very certain franchise many of you may know. This is Final Fantasy. Now, I like Final Fantasy. I like Final Fantasy a lot. It holds a very special place in my heart. However, it's also one of those odd games where you would think by just saying, hey, Final Fantasy should make a great tabletop role-playing experience. And from there, you would be wrong. So, for those who don't know what Final Fantasy is, A, have you been living under a rock? Two, Final Fantasy, Final Fantasy franchise. Final Fantasy has been going on since, a long ass time. Just the fact that they're getting ready to release Final Fantasy 16 should be a small indication. It has been going on for 1989, 87 is when it first started. Pretty much 88 though. And technically they just released another version last year, which was the nothing final about it, am I right, gamers? Yeah, pretty much. And from there have been spin-offs such as Kingdom Hearts, there's been the Secret of Mana series, the Saga series, and the Vagrant Story series. There's actually been a lot of Final Fantasy, and I don't think people ever quite understand the sheer amount of fucking stuff when it comes to just all of the various Final Fantasies. And these are just the main games, too. You gotta remember that. These are the mainline games, not the films or the side games such as Final Fantasy Tactics or Final Fantasy Tactics Advance. And like there are an absurd amount of Final Fantasy stuff. Uh, Case in point, Airborne Brigade. What? Yeah, there's some ones we just haven't seen before. What are half these? Typo? Yeah, we got typo. But I was fascinated by it in more than a few ways because at its core, Final Fantasy should have fuck off art. Whoever you are, go away. Silence, bot. Yeah, and the masterpiece that is Spirits Within. And it's it's one of those things where Final Fantasy, if you were to pitch Final Fantasy to me, just about any Final Fantasy game, I think anyone would be like, that sounds like a really cool game. And everyone's like, hey kids, do you want to play in your favorite game ever? Like, oh boy, yeah, I do. I want to play in Midgard. I want to play in Final Fantasy VI. I want to play in the Ivalice because everyone loves Ivalice. And even with the wildly successful Final Fantasy XIV, the actual MMO game that came out, like the MMO is huge. It's kind of in a position right now to kind of geek the big boy right now. It's been going on for 7 years too. It's kind of a huge franchise at this point, and just the fact that it's allowed to cross over with just about fucking anything. So it's like, okay, you know, shouldn't this be like great tabletop RPG bait? And the answer is that it is not. Yeah, Ivalice is the popular one in a lot of ways, but the odd thing is, the four games we're going to be going over here today all share a very common problem. And it's kind of a definitive problem. One that's kind of difficult to, pinpoint. Is the older Final Fantasy RPG still alive? Give me 1 second. That'll be Final Fantasy 11. Final Fantasy 11. Is that still online? I don't believe so, but it was also like a PS2 MMO. You gotta remember that too. No one remembers that part, that it was a PS2 MMO. Let's see. As of September 10th, 2020, a new episodic story series called The Voracious Resurgence has been added to the game. Yes, in case you're wondering, the game is still being played, apparently. What? Like, now I'm curious. 'Cause I'm like, okay, yeah, this game's dead. But no, it's not. It's still here. 40, yeah, like 2015. Yeah, this game came out. When did this game come out? This game came out in 2002. And technically, is the final main scenario. Long together, 14 years of Final Fantasy XI. Ultimate compilation we've accomplished to date. 3 separate chapters released free. Yeah, you can still technically play Final Fantasy XI by sheer technicality. So if you've ever wanted to play Final Fantasy XI, you can play Final Fantasy XI. And it's not dead either. Like, this is the it's still here. Hi phone. Like, it's still like around and you can still play it, which this is the official Final Fantasy XI Twitter. What the fuck? Yeah, no, this is okay, yeah, we learned a lot today already. So, one thing about Final Fantasy is that it is a I wouldn't even call it quite a devout following. I would say it's almost fanatical, cult-like even, by just the pure amount of stuff that people engage with this setting with, engage with this franchise with. Hell, Final Fantasy VII is massive. It's getting its own like 3-part fucking remake that it feels like getting because it's Final Fantasy VII and everyone loves that game. You end up with things like the wars between people between Final Fantasy, people love Final Fantasy IX. The fact that Titus is himself a meme in Final Fantasy X as a ghost football player. No, stop it. Or you end up with things like Final Fantasy XII being really good, but Final Fantasy XII forgets its own protagonist. You literally do not play the protagonist of Final Fantasy XII. You play a side character in the story, but still is amazing. It's really bizarre. And I appreciate every single one of the Final Fantasy just because of how bizarre they are. Such as Final Fantasy 15 with Beautiful Boy Car Adventure, which will never go on with you and your beautiful boy friends. I mean, living the life. Do you really need like, I remember the first time I saw it, and I was like, this is literally going to be a game about going on a road trip with the boys. And that's it. There's like who the fuck thinks of these things? And I'm like, I'm in. I love it. But what about the tabletop games? Well, this is where things get a little bit odd. Of all of these games, from what I've been able to understand, this game right here is technically part of the same circle, you could call them. Omega Fantasy and Final Fantasy, the 4th edition, remastered edition, is part of the same group of people who are kind of working on both. Or at least share camaraderie, we'll say. This one is its own independent thing with its own massive amount of people who kind of dedicate time and effort to things. But it's like, okay, copyright material, no claim ownership. And where was that one that threw me for a loop? Yeah, so part of the first returners group since creation of FFRPG's first edition. this game, Final Fantasy RPG has been around for a very long time. Like, way longer than we think. And then we also end up with things like here, development of famous third edition started. There began disagreements among the team, leading to the creation of the first FFRPG spin-off, Zodiac. From 2001, S. Ferguson. Now, there are other variations of, like, all these different names and different people. And one thing I have kind of noticed is that there was, how do I want to word this even? No, there is no official Final Fantasy TTRPG game. The closest one that's ever come to existence, the absolute, like, closest one we'll ever probably get, TTRPG AL-BHED, is AL-BHED. It's kind of hard to get a good idea of it, but it's very much the same idea and same look, which AL-BHED's an older game, so it kind of adds up, but AL-BHED does its own thing at the same time. This is the closest thing. You can also technically make an argument that Sword World is also a Final Fantasy game at its core, but nothing official, which we'll get to one of the reasons why that is the case. Board game? Final Fantasy board game. Is there a Final Fantasy board game? Let's go on an adventure, everyone. So we want to go to Final Fantasy board game. There has to be a board game. I would be astounded. Okay, the Square Enix store, everyone. Table, 0 products. Okay, 51 products. So trading card game, jigsaw puzzle, trading card, jigsaw puzzle, trading card. That's just a chocobo playing. Okay, yeah, there's a chocobo crystal hunt. Trading card. Yeah, trading card. So in case you want to answer, no, there is not an official even board game hardly outside of. If they were Japan only ones, I don't actually think there would be. Because the odd thing about Final Fantasy, and Orange Shade, so you joke like, oh, make an official, Final Fantasy PBTA. One of the bizarre things about Final Fantasy, and when we're going through these games, I want you all to kind of close your eyes and think about this for a second. Final Fantasy is not really all that connected. That's the odd thing. Yeah, Brazilian. The odd thing is you have this huge amount of worlds in Final Fantasy. Final Fantasy, like 5, one of my favorite Final Fantasy. I adore Final Fantasy 5. Is very different from Final Fantasy 15. Completely different game. Final Fantasy 7 is different from Final Fantasy 8, even though they kind of share some themes. Final Fantasy 9 is nothing like anything of the other. 6 is its own beautiful masterpiece, which everyone should play. Play Final Fantasy 6. I will hurt people if you don't. But then you have like Final Fantasy 12 and Ivalice, then Final Fantasy Tactics, more darker story, and then Tactics Advance, which is literally just Marsh beating up children. And Marsh did nothing wrong. What I'm trying to get across here is that Final Fantasy means nothing. It is literally vampire. Tactics is the shit. Fuck you, anyone who says otherwise. I love Tactics. Tactics is probably one of my favorite games of all time. Easy. But you have all of these worlds and all these ideas, and one of the key things I've always gotten from Final Fantasy games is that Final Fantasy is about telling a story of characters in a world doing something. And those worlds are very maybe not well defined, but they are defined enough to tell the story. Final Fantasy X is a weird setting. It's literally an entire setting built on the back of a ghost football player trying his best to stop Omega Satan by, doing that. And one of your best friends is a footballer named Waka. And Waka's the best character in the game. But it's like, wait a second. So this is its own entire thing. And so you have this weird blend of like Magitech and its own things. Then you, kind of, squirt back a little bit, and you're like, wait a second. Here is, Waka's a gay icon when he boinks Lulu. There's so much Bara Waka art. I don't think you understand. And then you have like Final Fantasy VI, which is same ideas, but completely different in scope. Completely different ideas, completely different look, completely different ideas. And I think that's the idea with Final Fantasy. If you want to get the... Damn straight I do my Waka research. Originally, the V Sona was going to be Waka with a fucking notepad face, but I'm like, there's too much porn. Oh, God. You end up in the situation where the best Final Fantasy RPGs... the best Final Fantasy RPG is not a Final Fantasy RPG. The best Final Fantasy RPGs are the ones that you make. About those fantastical worlds with those fantastical ideas. All about building a core story around some ideas. You can set the game in Ivalice. But that's not the point. Final Fantasy isn't chocobos. It's not, chocobos and getting all the items and doing all that. That's not the point of Final Fantasy. The point of Final Fantasy is to say, here's some weird shit, here's some cool ideas, let's make a game out of it. Yeah, the Mogs are not the point. It's not, your game is the Final Fantasy, and that's what it means. However, with a lot of these games, you end up in a situation where they're kind of taking their own... Instead of making their own unique story about it, they're instead making this huge, larger, bigger, like, here's the, quote, Final Fantasy RPG, rather than their own RPG with Final Fantasy influences, if that's what I'm trying to get across. Yeah, the real Final Fantasy was the friends we made along the way. And yeah, Blitzball RPG, you're right, which all of these games do have Blitzball mechanics except the big one. But the odd thing about with a lot of the Final Fantasy RPGs we're going to be going over today is that there was the mother Final Fantasy RPG. And I hunted around for it and I couldn't find it. I actually could not find it. And if it was there, it was kind of hidden behind some things. But you see here, Game Master since 94, and one of the people who were part of the Returners group of since the creation of FFRPG's first edition. Now, here's the thing. This was around, second edition development in 2001. I would actually like to make sports RPGs. I think that was fascinating. I think there was the Mother RPG, the Mother Final Fantasy RPG, that we will never, somewhere along the way, that Mother one spawned and influenced every single other Final Fantasy RPG to date. Every single one. And it's kind of its own problem, because we look back here in 2001, we want to do Final Fantasy, Final Fantasy Wikipedia article, we just want to... Now, this is 2001, mind you, so we have to kind of take a step back. 2001, we just got Final Fantasy X. We already had Final Fantasy 9, we had 8, we had 7, 5, we had all these older ones, but we didn't have anything like 11. 11 hadn't come out yet. 12 didn't come out yet. 13 didn't come out yet. None of these other ones down here were even seeing the light of day. And this was even before something, so the earliest edition, if we're to be believed, may have been even around here in 99, even 2000, which you would have Final Fantasy VIII being the new hotness, or even Final Fantasy VII. Now, alright, see you later, Ajax. One of the things is that mother RPG influenced every other RPG that came out after it. And it was based on these games. On 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. It was based off of those ones. Not necessarily based off of anything else, really. Which does give it like a very unique feeling to it. Otherwise known as the fact that materia is fucking everywhere. No, mother, you mean Earthbound? No, like, pretty much the progenitor. There was the one Final Fantasy RPG that spawned every other Final Fantasy RPG we'll be seeing today. In one way or another. And looking around, every other variation of Final Fantasy RPG was also derived entirely from that, or one of its own children. Like, it's this family tree originating from a single one. Single game back in, like, early 2000, or late 90s. Hell, they were playing it on the fucking IRC, which is like, yeah, kind of weird if you think about it. Like, yeah, IRC. So, the first game we're going to be looking over today is actually going to be probably the lightest and easiest to understand. This is Omega Fantasy 2. Now, Omega Fantasy 2 only recently came out. This is only about... let me check their Discord real fast. Hello, Discord. How are you? Where are you? Mega Fantasy came out about June. About June of this year. So it's only about 3 months old. Like, this is a very relatively new game. And from what I've heard about people still... When I was looking around, people did recommend the first edition. Like, can you take a look at the first edition of this game? And I'm like, alright, I can do that. So, what makes this game... Omega Fantasy, Omega Fantasy? Well, at its core, this game is a 2d6 system. And a very simple 2d6 system. It's just a rollover 2d6. That's all it is. At its core. And since you're only using d6s, it uses kind of like a D for shorthand for everything. It's just roll over the difficulty number. Nothing else, nothing more, nothing less. And it's very simple for that. It does actually use Shadow of the Demon Lord advantage and disadvantage, which I like. I mean, it's a solid system. It works for what its point is. Disadvantage, only the 2 lowest dice are counted. Advantage, the 2 highest dice. So, pretty standard stuff. Is fortune dice. Every player rolls 1d6 and the result is written down. It's Kamigakuri influence. If you remember that at all, pretty much every player, you roll a dice, and then you can swap out that dice or whatever you want to use to it. The GM also gets this. And I like this mechanic. I like these mechanics in general. I like this mechanic from Kamigakuri. Hell, I used it in one of my own games. And I'm like, okay, alright. Multiple hours, very, very simple stuff. Experience, life and death. Fairly standard stuff. Then we move straight into combat. Now, this is page fucking 3. Yeah, I want you to remember that. This is page 3. And we're already on, here's the combat system. Maybe noticing, wait a second, notepad. We haven't gone over characters yet. And the example is, well, this is kind of character creation in a way. So, everything breaks down the rounds, fairly standard case here. This isn't too exciting. However, combat proficiencies are determined by 7 numerical attributes. You don't have things like strength. You don't have things like power. You have these. Well, more accurately, you do have things like strength, but it's more damage attacking things rather than I'm strong or I have high constitution. It's this. You know, calculation non-integer value. The result is always random, rounded down. Hit points, mana points, strength, defense, magic, resistance, agility. Those are your attributes. And that's what you do. If you want to attack someone, they get to make an evasion check minus his agility. So if you have an agility of 4, you need to roll a 8 or higher on your 2d6 to avoid the attack. However, if you, on your evade, roll a 2, you get hit by a critical hit. If you roll a 12, you get to do a counter attack. No character only battle. We'll get to that in a second because I actually have a sample character for this. Dun dun dun. Yes, I have a sample character because I thought it would be interesting to do it because I was like, is this how simple it is? You know, magical abilities by spending MP. Choose a target while concentrating. You cannot take actions. Or your turn, you cannot be evaded even if you are not in range anymore. You know, pretty much if spells are guaranteed hits. Spells deals damage, restore HP. Every spell's description has information, MP cost, target, range. Pretty standard. Problem is, you can't do anything for it for a turn, and then you blast it off, and then you can do something on that turn. Which, they explain this very oddly, so I'm going to do my best to kind of explain it here. So, let's say I cast a spell, that's turn 1 for me. And then I, spell blast. It goes off, which is turn 2, well, actually turn like 2A, and then I get to do another action for turn 2B. It's very odd the way it handles this, and it's like, okay, I mean, I guess I know what you're going for, but it's also very weird. And then defend, oh, you have an item. You use an item, and you can re-equip, including materia, because it's always fucking materia. I'm one of the few human beings alive that doesn't like Final Fantasy fucking 7. And I don't like Final Fantasy 7. I never have. But this is kind of how it's done. Everyone's based off these attributes. Like, for example, this is my example character. And he's level 5 because I want to get kind of everything in here. But these are his stats. He has strength 3, defense 3, magic, resistance, agility, movement, and evasion. Now, he doesn't have any magic, and this is level 5. And this is pretty much all you're going to be getting out of a character, because there's only 10 levels of a character every time. And, oh wow, look everyone, it has all the weaknesses and status effects. We all like these. We all like status effects. You can even turn yourself into a zombie. Wowzers! However, this is levels. You start at level 1, and you go to level 10. That's it. You get your job, you get a talent, an archetype, a limit break, and an esper at level 5. At level 5, you've gotten all the parts of your character pretty much. The character is done. The idea of units is, if you treat units as a method for them to allow you to say, we're in giant mechs now, a unit for my mech is 1 unit, but for someone on the ground it might be 3 units. I use this often myself. I call it space distance, because it was I wanted to be funny, make a funny, and it's the same thing. However, after you hit level 5, you lose all of, you don't really gain anything except specializations. Which specializations are things like you start an extra 6 in your influence pool, you gain a second esper, you gain a second talent, which, you gain access to a second archetype of your job. You use a spell, you gain 1 limit point. These don't feel like, how do I want to word this? These aren't important. These first 5 levels are like the game that you're like, yeah, this is fun because I'm getting new things. This is after level 5, it's like, let's improve those things a little bit. And this is the character sheet. I kind of want to get over the idea of like, this is the entire character sheet. And technically only this is. Like, out of all of this, this is what you deal with. It is a incredibly simple game. And some people are going to like that, some people aren't going to like that. And now we get to the jobs. Because you can't have a Final Fantasy RPG without jobs, right? Well, yeah. And all of these jobs are very regimented. At level 1 you get this, level 2 you get this. And then at level 3, like, oh boy, I'm going to select my archetype, which is a subclass effectively, in which you just add all your other attribute bonuses. Add in all your other attribute bonuses. And that's that, really. Like, it's very simple, this game. Because remember, it's 2d6 for everything. Like fire, for example. If I want to do fire, I'm going to spend my MP, make my target, cast it, and then at the end, I roll 2d6 to the amount of fire damage I deal to you. That's it. That's what I do. I'm rolling my dice to hit you with that. And there are some odd inclusions with the jobs. You will see... okay, so to give you an idea, bards are sometimes present in these games, sometimes they aren't. Black mages are always present, but sometimes they get shifted around with these two. You know, the scholar and geomancer, they sometimes get their own class, sometimes they don't. Dragoons are everywhere for some reason. They're either there, or they are just not present, or they get folded into like a subclass. But you get a very segmented, like, if you're a dragoon, you're going to get a spear, and you're going to get heavy armor. That's it. That's all you get. As a marksman, you're going to get a bow or gun, and light armor. By the time you finish character creation, you're done with this game. Actually, not really. By the time you finish your character, you've kind of already summarized what your character is going to be and how they're going to be acting. Which... jobs in Final Fantasy V were cool. I like jobs in Final Fantasy V because it gave the character a lot of personality and allowed them to kind of mix and match how you want to do things, even down to things like, yeah, we're a dancer now because dancers are funny. But they never lost their character, really, and you were really easy to switch jobs. This game, not really. Like, it's once you're kind of stuck in that job, you're stuck in that job. And some classes are pseudo in there, like sentinels. I don't remember sentinels really being in there because they're usually called paladins. Summoning is in there because summoning is every one of these fucking games. Thieves, ninjas, treasure. And this is what a majority of the game actually is. It's, you have these abilities, this is your tech score. Make a DC 7 check and borrow something from a target if you succeed. Roll 1d, 20 on a 1 or 2, a potion or a remedy on 4, ether, phoenix down on 6. That's one of the odd things with this game is it probably does the best of getting across the feeling of Final Fantasy. Just like yes, here is the Tinker, here is the Time Mage, here is like, it gives across all of the, the best way to kind of word it is that it is a cardboard cutout with Final Fantasy painted on it. And it's like, yes, it is Final Fantasy, however, you feel like there's something missing in there. And there's some cool, like, I like the ideas of how simple this game is, and that's like how just tight it actually works. I enjoy that aspect of it, I won't lie. I think that's kind of interesting. The equipment section's a little bit odd because, increased damage, armor protects damage, accessories can complement a character's gear. Provides a unique effect as a type. All weapons have a range of 1 unless specified. Now, equipment pieces are classified into different equipment ranks depending on their potency and rarity. While everyone can carry beginner equipment, characters need to reach higher level to use advanced or expert equipment. Now, this is where things get a little bit strange. At level 1, you get 1,500 gold. You can buy a beginner weapon or a beginner mithril weapon for that much. Beginner armor. And then, you can buy any of these. Like, just remember that. You want to buy an assassin knife? Go for it. You want to buy a fucking machine gun? Cool. The thing is, they are all going to be rank 1. That is how much damage you're going to be doing. You're going to be doing rank 1 damage. It's going to be 1d6 damage. That's it. Including if you have a buster sword. If you have a gun blade, you're going to be doing 1 damage with it at the start. Which some people are going to be like, wait a second, I literally have, you know, an oracle bone. That's really powerful. Why isn't it like that? Because that's not the point of this game. The point of this game is you are playing Final Fantasy TM. We're getting here, look at, you have all the right things you need. Look, you have a Kenpo gi on. You're blind to it, you're immune to blind. Why? Because the Kenpo gi in the game had immunity to blind effects. That is what it was. And then we get all the accessories. These are a little bit more, like, you can also, like, have to, like, level up to get some of these. But, yeah, you hear that little term? You gotta level up. Yeah, you aren't getting advanced until, I think, level 4. You aren't getting expert until level 7. Like, it's a little gamey. But if you're kind of in that kind of idea, it's not a terrible idea, actually. And all the items and all the materia. Do you like materia? We have materia. Let me tell you about materia real fast. Because we have it. Now, there are some, like, good, like, interesting ones. Like, oh, water materia. Breathe normally underwater. I'm like, alright, that makes sense. Or it's like chocobo materia. You fall from any height, you glide down gracefully. Alright. Moogle materia. Night vision. Counter materia? Like, there are a few, it's like, oh no. Talents are weird. I'll be saying this right now. This is the way that you can actually differentiate your character. Because if you've noticed, probably, if 2 people play a rogue, they're going to be the exact same character. So you kind of have to, like, break your characters up by class, so it kind of restricts you a little bit there. Sweet Christmas! Yeah, Final Fantasy V was a wild adventure. And the talents are pretty like, they're abilities that let you do things not covered by other parts of the rules. Like apothecary, you can create a potion or remedy from ingredients found in nature or stores. That means nothing. There's no, like, crafting system in this game. That's not a thing. Or it's like artist. Given time, you create beautiful works of art, painting, sculptures. It's worth 100 up to amount of guild up to 100 times your current level. Or then you end up with, like, blue mage, which isn't a thing in this game. It's like, okay. Flower girl. Wait a second, I've seen this one before. Or my favorite, clown. It's not a clown, you are literally Kefka. You know, the main villain from Final Fantasy VI. I want to be a flower girl. Like, yeah, you could choose to be, like, just a flower girl, but then it's also ones like, where's the one I saw? I'm like, wait a second. There are a few that are, like, really good. Like, why would you pick, like, as a purely, like, here, like, telepathy, it's like, why would I want to pick anything that isn't, like, giving me, like, a straight advantage? In some cases, or, like, something a little bit more, like, less reliant on a GM. Like, yeah, hostile intentions. Like, that's just this is a pure mechanical advantage. Identify any plant, know how to grow them. GM could say, you don't understand that. It's like, oh. Yeah, it's just like, everyone is the clown now. Like, wait, okay. You're a theologian. You have perfect knowledge in all religions in the world, including their deities, customs, and factions. Cool. You can spend an hour to create explosives. Like, there are some like mechanical ones and non-mechanical ones. It's kind of odd here. Limit breaks, because of course we have limit breaks. Come on, you don't have limit breaks, in which you have to build your limit mode with. You have to build limit points by doing things. It's like you get it for waking up by using a talent, suffering a KO after leveling up. And then you also get limit points, limit modes for doing additional effect, like having additional effects here. It's like, okay, like this is fine, right? This is fine. And the idea is that you have to have, if I remember correctly, it's, where is it? Cannot exceed 5 points, yeah. Of your limit break in this rating cannot exceed 5 points. There's no benefit for staying below the cap. So the idea is you pick an ability, any ability you currently have. Yeah, no, it's... Oh, someone's pinging me. There's one thing, it's called Guardian Core. Guardian Core is that you do not take any damage when you fall. There's a talent that makes it so. There's a talent for one of the classes that makes you take no damage when you fall. There's an item that makes sure you take no damage when you fall. There's also a Esper that means that you take no damage when you fall. It's like, wait a second. Now, I do actually like this idea. It's like, hey, we take an ability and you can augment it with these ratings. You hit a certain amount of limit break points. Once you do that, you limit break. You can use it. But there's also some of them, it's like, wait a second, like, why am I, like, some of these are, but these are the limit modes, which you gain limit points by doing something. But you also get an additional effect. Where it's like, oh, I'm a coward, but that means I also increase my range by 3. Of all my limit breaks. It's like, okay, then. Like, this is definitely a thing. Like, all right. It's very... This entire section is very strange. And I understand what they're going for, but it's just handled in a very bizarre way. And it's like, okay. And then we have Espers, because we have to have Espers in all the games. But you can also call your Esper to do something, or you just have a base support version of it. Like, Gilgamesh, in which you can, whenever you choose to re-equip the action, you gain bonus strength. Okay. And some of them are pretty useful. Others of them are like, neat. Big help. Where was the one that I was like, wait, that doesn't seem very useful. Let's see. Yeah, the Atmos one was like, you select Atmos, you are effectively being like the teleport whore. That is your job and nothing more. Congratulations. So it's like, all right, game, and then we have all the bestiaries, and then we have, like, it's a fairly standard affair. It's like the very exact shit you looked at. The example maps are from Final Fantasy games, like just taken one for one in some cases. And if we go down here a little bit more, we got to go through all the example adventure stuff because we don't really care. And we also have to go through the Ivalice world book. The entire Ivalice world book, because Ivalice is the only cool setting in Final Fantasy, apparently. We just keep going through all this. Now we hit the sample rules. These are optional, additional, like, side rules that somewhat feel like they shouldn't be side rules. And you get things like, here's a new experience point system. Or it's like, oh, here's survival. Like, oh, wait a second. Like, why are all these seem like Some of these feel like important. Others of them are like, but why? Like, wait a second. Hold up. And then it's like, here's an entire system of row combat. Why is row combat in here? It's like, alright, cool. Then all the races, which are the same races as everything. Hey, look, everyone, it's the Bonga. You know, those guys from Ivalice. Hey, look, everyone, it's the Guado. From, I believe, 14? No, 11. We gotta have Moogles. We gotta have Numos. Oh boy, clap. Here's a Ronzo. We all like Ronzo. Clap, clap, clap. There's sexy buddy girls. Hot furry Ronzo action. And it's then like, here's Viera, because Viera always in, and then humans, and the Miquote, or Miquote, cat boys and cat girls. Which, are you noticing a distinct lack of something from Final Fantasy 14, like 11, 14? Yeah, you can't play any Lalafels. That's what I think. I'm like, like, this is clearly from 14, but they're just not in. Like, all right, cool, whatever. Uh, Noctis, no, there's no wrong way to love a chocobo. Yeah, there's an entire chocobo breeding system in this game. Why? There's a chocobo, like, or hey, you want to play triple triad? Here's literally the entire system of how to play triple triad. Why? Why is there an entire system to play triple fucking triad in this game? And the most important part of any game, Blitzball. Which, yes, this is a full-on Blitzball system with full mechanics that somebody took time to do. And it's like, oh boy, here's all the stamina points, and here's everything here to play Blitzball. Now, I want to ask you all a question. This game has the Ivalice world book. Ivalice. And this game has Bangas. This game has this game has Viera. This game has all these different things. Why is Blitzball here? Blitzball is Final Fantasy X is the only Final Fantasy that has Blitzball. The reason why Blitzball is here is pretty simple, because it's Final Fantasy TM. And it's, at its core, Omega Fantasy is pretty good. Like, it's decent. However, right here, see page 33, that is where the game ends. All of this means nothing to like 95% of people. Oof. Like, it's a very simple game. And if you want a game that is really simple and really easy to understand and kind of its own thing, you're also kind of exchanging that uniqueness at the same time. It's kind of an odd situation, because what do you really classify Titus as? Let's say you want to play Titus. How would you word him? Well, do you kind of, is he, well, maybe he's, oh, he has to be a warrior, right? Well, not quite, because he can use magic. So he's not quite a warrior. Okay, maybe he's maybe he's a thief. Well, not really, because he doesn't really actually do anything thievy-like. Maybe he's a red mage. Well, he still has all these attacks with his sword. It's an important part of his character. Spellblade? Not quite. What I'm trying to get across here is, in an effort to harmonize all the Final Fantasies together, you lose a lot of that Final Fantasy flavor. And that's one of the biggest issues with this game. And one of the big things we're going to see with all these games, which we're going to move on to. Close this one out. This is Final Fantasy D6. This is the really contentious one. People, I've heard it both sides. People either love it or they hate it, which is also another spawn of the primordial Final Fantasy RPG. One thing to note, though, is that the first one cited as a thank you, I didn't even notice this to begin with. One of the first things cited is fucking TG of all things. And it's like, that's kind of interesting. Like, and the thing is, this isn't, if this was like, oh, it's alphabetized, then I'll be like, okay, yeah, it makes sense why TG's there. But no, it's not alphabetized. It's clearly the first one that was written in. Like, I find that really interesting. We also have something would happen with Moogle molesting Troy Wolfswift, wherever he may be. So let's do a little bit of looking here, right? Yeah, Final Fantasy D6 is a project started in 1995. 95. This game is older than me. And again, this game, Final Fantasy D6, is older than Final Fantasy 7. This one, the first edition. Yeah, I was born in 97. I'm 24. Boomer. However, this project has changed hands quite a few times. It started with Scott Tenglin. Scott gets mentioned a few times. I don't really know anything about him, though. What I've been able to kind of find about him has been like a finance manager in Michigan. Like, that's not him, obviously. Like, Scott Tenglin, Final Fantasy. Yeah, this is really the only one that pops up with him. And I don't think this is him, actually. It's changed hands quite a bit. And that's kind of indicative of a lot of things. Now, Final Fantasy D6 is decent. Definitely decent. Right now, it's changing hands. It's currently, this is the 3rd edition. This is by a guy named Samuel Banner. You know, it was inspired by the Returners. Now, remember, the Returners were mentioned previously. Wow, and one of the people who were part of the Returners group since the creation of FFRPG. Of the Returners. This is one of those things where it gets odd when you start connecting the dots and how all these games begin kind of its own thing. It's like, oh god, like, oh no. You know, accurately reflect the feel and style of Final Fantasy. Dramatic, larger than life, and grand affairs. Oh goodness, it's a game, all right. Now, this is exactly what you think it is. It is guess what? It's a fucking 2d6 system. Are you noticing a trend here? But yeah, it's a d6 system. Did this come before Omega Fantasy? I don't know. I really do not know. Actually, I know it came before Omega Fantasy, but I'm like, was Omega Fantasy inspired by this? Or was Omega Fantasy its own independent thing split off from this? Or was it its own thing? It's impossible to tell. Because this does have a very different feel to things. And It's 2d6, all right. It's exactly what you think it is. It's complications, you know, you roll sixes. Well, things go right, things go wrong. Oh no. Character creation is actually kind of funny. As humanoids, your character is vulnerable to shadow damage. It's like, all right, all right. However, you have to take a special perk to not be human or humanoid. And I thought that was kind of interesting in its own right. I'm like, okay, that's kind of, it's right in there as its face. It tells you you don't really need to worry about races. Be unusual, have an appearance. You actually get awarded destiny points by filling out your quote. And destiny points are like your gimme points. I actually kind of enjoy this. Stupid, but it's funny. And then this one has a lot more of a traditional setup to attributes. You have power, resolve, dexterity, and mind. Those are it. However, the way you actually distribute them is a little bit different. It is pretty much you end up with, let me see, basic character time, figure out how much do you get? Yeah, 25 attributes divided among the 4. So, one thing to note, it's 4 divided by 20. If we do 24, it would be 6. 25 points? Jesus. So on average, you're going to end up with a 6, 6, 6, 7. 12, 18, 18, 25. That is going to be your standard array right there, which seems pretty high once when you realize everything's ranked from like 1 to 10, and it is. It is ridiculously high. It's definitely its own thing. Soul, I don't know yet. Because this game is is a lot clunkier than Omega Fantasy. Like, if you were to put a gun to my head with all of these games that we're going to go over, and you said you have to run one, I would pick Omega Fantasy every single time. Because Omega Fantasy is light enough where I can mold things easier to do what I want with it. These ones are a lot different. Because there's a lot of attributes, and there's a lot of sub-attributes, and you have combat, all your hit points, your magic points. Every single one of these fuckers have magic points. And none of them feel satisfying. They never do. Avoidance, which is your ability to dodge, which is 1/4 of your dex score. And your accuracy is half the character's level rounded down with a bonus granted by their job. And that's the likelihood to actually hit something. Or your armor, which is simply calculated by adding your armor granted by your equipment, give permanent bonus to armor. Magic armor is completely different. It does its own thing. It's like, fucking what? And you don't have skills. Sort of. And skills are the most bizarre fucking thing in the world. Day-to-day proficiencies, you can allocate skill points wherever you like, but the maximum number of points you have is only one skill limited to your finesse score. So you want to pump your finesse. Because finesse is good and lets you do more things, but you also get like an average of 6 in it. So it's like, okay. But you also kind of have to worry about it to be its own thing. It's like, okay, you got your equipment. Okay, first level. 2 job abilities, 25 attributes, 0 extra skills, 10 attributes, and it's 10 has your max attribute, 500 gills, 0 destiny. Now, the jobs are exactly what you think they are. And what you can do is you pick 2 jobs. Pretty much you pick your, actually, how do I want to word this? You pick 1 job, and then you can then choose 2 abilities from that job. Yeah, there we go. And these mean nothing. The crystals mean nothing here. That's just a way to help you. Now, black mage, blue mage. See, blue mages are in this game. But dark knights were an archetype. Blue mages were a talent. Dragoons are in here. Entertainers are in this one. Gamblers are in this game. Geomancers are their own thing. The engineer is its own thing. The ninja is. Paladin, ranger, monks. Samurai, red mages, time mages, thieves, warriors, white mages. They're all their own things in this game. And this is exactly what you think it is. Here's your spell ranks and all the abilities. Most of these abilities are pretty standard. You always get your innate ability, and some of these are like Obliterate. Once per session, the Black Maiden may activate Obliterate as an instant action, even once they're interrupt an enemy turn, in order to make a force check to destroy a large object. Add up to a long range of +4 bonus to the check. The GM's discretion. Obliterate can be used to destroy smaller, non-sentient objects that are predominantly magical in nature. Multiple times increased on bonus granted by +4 each time. That's your kind of abilities, because spells are their own thing, rather than in like an Omega Fantasy where spells are gained by virtue of being part of that class. So it's like, okay, we're making progress now. And to give you an idea, all of them are kind of like that. There are abilities that you have. And we're going to be here a while. Yeah, but you also end up with things like this. This is where this game gets a little bit clunky. And with the standard action, the Dragoon may leap long range, vertically, horizontally, or both. Upon doing so, the Dragoon's turn immediately ends. On the beginning of the Dragoon's next turn, the character is considered to be soaring through the air too quickly to be targeted, and the Dragoon is immune to any status or beneficial single target attacks or spells. Status conditions such as poison continue to affect the Dragoon while they are jumping, and the character can still be affected by group or local target attack. When the Dragoon lands at the beginning of their next turn, they may make an instant force check and destroy the surface they land on, or an instantaneous melee attack against one enemy within short range. However, this attack cannot be a critical hit or a limit break. Spells and effects treat the Dragoon as if they have auto flight status during the use of this innate ability, preventing them from suffering falling damage or being affected by earth-based spells and abilities for the duration of the jump. The Dragoon may only use jump while on a reasonably solid surface, and while riding a mount capable of flight. The attack is generally more of a swoop than a jump. This is what this is what you're paying for Final Fantasy D6. It's a lot meatier. You get a lot more stuff, you get a lot more options, you get a lot more things going on for reasons. And I understand why this game is probably one of the more contentious versions of it. Because, well, this is what happens. Because you want to emulate the feeling of Final Fantasy. And the feeling of Final Fantasy is sometimes a little bit weird. So, okay. Let's zoom past all the jobs. Okay, so we've gone through all the jobs, which are about 80 pages. Because there's a lot of jobs in Final Fantasy if you haven't quite got the opinion yet. Then it's things like, okay, we have an animal companion. These are abilities you can possess and you can choose whatever. It doesn't matter. For some reason, they get their own chapter. But when it says you get to choose 2 abilities, you can also choose these ones. And some of them are like, this is kind of interesting, and other of them, it's like, why is this a thing? Like Onion Knight. Or Skillful, or it's like Special Vehicles. It does the thing. Where you have all of the things that make Final Fantasy into one thing. With kind of losing the meat of it at the same time, which is one of the issues I see, like, why people are sometimes a little bit less, leap from snowflake to snowflake as they fall, like 30, like, it's a 2d6 system. Paranatural ones as well, they get, creates complication, affecting other NPCs. Alright, pretty standard stuff. Like, you've already seen this. The skills are exactly what you think they are. You add a bunch of skills, you get some points to put in your skills, and you're allowed to do things. There's also an entire section on language. Why is there an entire language system in this game? What Final fucking Fantasy is like, here's the language system? Actually, let's see, what's Final Fantasy? Um, what's the one? Ah, here we go. I'll tell you why language is in here. I'll give you the hint of why it's in here. The answer is because of this. In Final Fantasy X and 10-2, you have the alphabet here. You know, the spire and the different alphabets. And then you also have to worry about the Yevon. The Yevon alphabet, which is its own thing. And don't forget about AL-BHED. You have to learn all the AL-BHED alphabets. That's just something you got to worry about. And it's important because it's important to those games because you're trying to learn more about the setting. You're trying to learn more about AL-BHED and you're trying to learn more about all the parts in that world, and you need to understand the cipher for it. It's in here, I guess. It just is. Deal with it. All the different skills. All the different skills. Destiny is exactly what it sounds like. It's your bennies. I like bennies sometimes, not usually. They are interesting sometimes. These ones are pretty simple. And you get them to do things like enhancing a role, being able to change your job, using abilities in the limit break, dying. Literally, your dying is one. It's a dramatic death, a blaze of glory, and then cheat death for 7-up. And then summoning also takes destiny points. Destiny points are less a Benny system and they are more of a currency. They change from something that's fun to get every now and again, and like, oh, I'm going to use this in a desperate situation, to a, we need to now manage I need to manage this currency that I have, to guarantee things. Just like, I'm a summoner. Well, I need to make sure that I'm constantly getting destiny to continue summoning. Hence, like, right here. And then all the collecting Esper attributes. Oh boy. All the summons and all the equipment. They do literally go over the amount of store types there are and what each of them will sell. Why bother with bazaars, auction houses, selling equipment, carrying equipment, all the inventory space, there is an absurd amount of material here for something that doesn't actually matter that much. What, you like brown elves with I believe this is from Final Fantasy XI, and that is an Elvon. Spelled Elvon. And they're... If I give Final Fantasy anything, it's just like, here's some sexy elves doing sexy elf things. You're just dealing with it. And we synthesize gear, like... It's like, okay. It's like, oh, here are arcane and all the different weapon categories that do their own things. Because one of the funny things is blades are their own specific kind of weapon rather than big weapons. I'm going to hit you with my, club. That's not a blade. That would be something completely different, which obviously not. This is called Blade because Final Fantasy uses blades. Every major characters use blades. You can't use a hammer. Don't use a hammer. Don't do that. Don't be dumb. Don't be stupid. Or it's like, here's a huge weapon. It's like, this is your Buster Sword tiers. Mauls, sledges, mallets, heavy axes, engineering wrenches. Wow. But you can't have a huge sword, by the way. It's one of those things where you're looking at it being like, well, technically I can have a huge sword, and would I call it huge, or would I call it a blade? Or do I call it something completely different? It's like, don't think about it too hard. All the non-proficiency, like all the non-proficiency stuff going on, all the changing equipment, all the weapons. Oh boy, you like weapons and all the accessories and all the tiers. Don't forget about all the tiers. Universal weapon properties. There's all the properties. Because the thing is, you don't necessarily buy a weapon. What you do is buy this. You buy one of these, and then you put it on it. There's a lot of stuff. Why is there so much? Here's all the sample equipment. Oh boy, everybody. Sample equipment. All the sample armor. Sample shields. Because you pretty much have to build all your equipment. You're building it using a series of traits and tags. Which some people are like, wow, that's really cool. I can make whatever weapon I want. Not really. You aren't really doing that. Because don't forget, there's an entire crafting system in this game. Because we do it, because Final Fantasy does it, we need to do it. Combat is weird. Combat's really weird. So, mostly pre-calculated. We'll use Spear this. Power times 1 plus 2d6 damage. Character is wielding this weapon, has power attribute of 15, and when the damage hits, it would be 15 plus 2d6. Okay. Cool, right? Simple. He only rolls a total 2d6 die for determining if the attack hits, as well as how much additional damage the attack does if successful. The roll and keep method. This is where things get really weird when it comes to damage, which every single fucking Final Fantasy RPG, I don't know if it's like a mandate. I don't know if someone is like threatening somebody else. But Playing a Thief uses a tier 3 weapon. She rolls two six-sided dice and ends up with a result of 7. She quickly mentally adds together with her accuracy score of 4 with a total of 11. Since her opponent's avoidance score is also 11, her attacks roll to meet exceeds that number. Allison knows she hit the target. But now she discovered her attack is successful. She goes ahead and calculates the damage. Tier 3 weapon does power times 3 plus 2d6 damage. And she's a power of 12. She does 36 plus 7 damage. You do not roll this 2d6. You've already determined it up here. And you're doing like 43 damage. I looked at it, I read it like 3 times. It is really like poorly explained. But it's pretty much there to say, the better you hit them, the more damage you do. But if you don't roll high enough, you just miss. And you look at it, you read it again, you read it a third time, you look at it again, you wonder, like, am I having a stroke? Because it is really overly clunky. Because it takes about 2 seconds longer. Because you have to consult this, and then you move on to this. It takes that little extra time. Which you could probably do by taking away the 2d6 there and just say it's power times 3, but then you have to deal with static damage, and static damage is a bitch. Descriptive attacks. Because they do want you to do descriptive attacks in this game. One thing I find fascinating about this game is because they want you to be descriptive. They want you to tell a story, and they want you to do these things to also, like, reduce the enemy evasion to 0. And they're like stunts, but they don't have like a strict... No, they don't have a strict method of doing it, which is one of the reasons like exalted stunts work, because you have a strict mechanical advantage. You would explain, I can hand you 2 extra d10s. Like, cool, this is fine. These ones are not. GMs should come up with their own appropriate benefits at some points, or, hey, should be allowed to treat the foe as having 0 evasion at least. However, if you just say, I attack, It's a -2 penalty opposed to the accuracy roll to GM's discretion. Narrative first, yes, Munchkin, that is correct. In a degree of narrative first. It's a little bit weirder than that, just because there's like that overt penalty. Now, I'm a fan of rewarding players for these things. I like to hand players rewards if something goes right, or if you make something descriptive. That's cool. That's fine. When you penalize them for doing it, what happens is it's the flip conundrum. Every single attack suddenly becomes I'm doing a flip through the air. I'm not attacking you. I'm going to spend a minute telling you how I attack that person so I don't take a -2 on it. And they're going to start doing the same shit, and it's not going to be like, oh, I jump through the air and I slash at him with my blade. It's going to be, I jump through at him and slash him with my blade 7 times. Because it's like, people will be like, okay, I want to attack. We're going to do this. We're going to attack. We're going to do this. Cool. People can only be fun and exciting for so long before it starts getting, like, really dull. And in any story, anything you ever read, if someone over-explains something, it loses a lot of majesty. No fight scene in any book or any story is like, okay, and then I did a right hook on his face and I hit his jaw, but then I dodged, and then he did a left hook to hit me, and then I, lurched to the side and I punched him in the face again. No, it's like, okay, I hit him, roundhouse hit, I hit him right in the jaw, and I moved back as he, flailed his fist forward trying to hit me. We don't need the graphic description of each of them. We can see it in our heads. We're putting everything, everything together. We are putting that mentally on top of there. This is encouraging you to don't do that, which is optional because, like most things, everything is optional. Initiative order, improbable weapon in unarmed combat. Here's an entire fucking section on it. So, one of the big things about this game that I want you to remember is that it is a lot of this game. And a lot is a lot. And sometimes you might look at this and be like, oh boy, I love it. This is fun. I'm having a lot of fun. This is enjoyable. But then it's like, oh god, here's all of the options that we get, and like here's all the rewards, like here's the recovery, and technically you can't die necessarily. If this doesn't mark the end of the campaign, most of the time the party will wake up in a nearby safe location, losing all the XP they had saved up. However, battling a boss or notorious monster makes things a little bit dangerous. Capable. No resurrection for dead characters. Enemies and death. Very standard stuff. Leveling up actually has a little bit more meat to it because they do things. I know, it's astounding. It's like, oh wow, look, I'm leveling up. All the limit break options, which are kind of the way they did it in Omega Fantasy. You build up all the ideas, and you do it. Depending on the amount of points you get, you can do them faster, you can do them slower. It's cool. I like this. This works pretty good. It's not positive, not great, not terrible. Social challenges, objects hardness. What I'm trying to get across with Final Fantasy D6 is that there is a lot of Final Fantasy D6. And that Final Fantasy D6 doesn't necessarily benefit it at all. Also, Lalafell are here now, and Lalafell actually eat everything. Or it's... Oh, we don't forget, we like Ivalis, here's the Banwa, here's the Numu. And that is one of the things you have to deal with Final Fantasy D6, is that there's a lot of stuff to consider, but you don't need to consider all of it. But every single part of it, it's going to remind you that it's there in this white document with barely any color in it. It's like, oh joy. Now, Where is it? So technically, it's 170 pages of rules. Now, we also have all the magics, all the bestiaries, and let me see if I can't. So we want to do 190. They also go over every single Final Fantasy world. With all of these, also have optional rules. Well, most of them do anyway. Or it's like, here is materia, like an entire materia system, because we need a materia systems. And here's what all the material all the materia does. Here's gun blades. And here's 9, because we all like 9. Don't worry, everybody. We also have Blitzball rules. I love the fact that anytime Final Fantasy X comes up, the first thing people have to put in is full-on Blitzball rules for some reason. But there will always be Blitzball rules. And every single one of them is always the same. It's like, I love them. More automatons, Final Fantasy 12, and then Final Fantasy 13, and then Final Fantasy Tactics. This came out before Final Fantasy Beautiful Boy Car Adventure came out. All different clans. Here's all the grid-based combat, because they put in a literal grid-based combat system just for Final Fantasy Tactics. That's it. And all the various magic spells. We all like the magic spells. Yay, everyone clap. Everyone clap for magic spells. There's more. There's more. Building attacks. Oh boy, we get to build all our attacks because every single enemy has a different amount. You have to build every enemy that isn't present here. You have to build. There's a lot to this game. An insane amount to Final Fantasy D6 that it could be cut down quite a bit to make a more satisfying adventure. You will either love Final Fantasy D6 because there is a lot of Final Fantasy D6 to play, or you will hate Final Fantasy D6 because there's a lot of Final Fantasy D6 that isn't maybe necessarily like fun. It's like, oh, because you're going to have to you're going to open this up. Oh, I hit my mic. You're going to open this up and want to know what the fuck what Valor does for the gambler. And there's going to be a lot of times where you're looking back through the rule book to see what happens with all of these different options, unless someone writes them all down. So, before we move on to the one that makes my eyes bleed, we're going to look at two little games that I find are fascinating. And these are Final Fantasy games that are, how the best to word it, the unfortunate children, for a variety of reasons. So this is the Seed RPG, which is a Final Fantasy inspired tabletop RPG. That's really only found here on the Wikipedia page. And this is, let's play basics. It's a D100 system. Now, Seed was one of the... Seed was one of the splinters of one of the main games. Seed was created because it was like, we don't like the way we're doing it here, so we made our own version of it. It's like, okay, that's fine. Like, this is okay. There's a lot of it, by the way. Because, like, here's the full talent system. You know, and then you have all the jobs. And they have their own set of jobs, too. Because you have bards, black mages, chemists, dancers, dragoons, green mages, marauders, ninjas, Perivere. The fuck's a Perivere? I think this means it's a dancer with a sword. But you have all these other ones here. I find this always very fascinating every time I see these different kinds of... Every time I see these, when I was getting recommended games, it was just like, wow, this is a lot. But it's always derived from that core game that when it popped up, everyone clapped. It was like, yes, we all love this very specific kind of game. We all love Final Fantasy, this mystical Final Fantasy game that appeared, and then yeah, we also have Final Fantasy D20, which is a Pathfinder homebrew. Do you like Pathfinder? If yes, you're going to like the literal Pathfinder version of Final Fantasy, because that's all this game is. It is a Final Fantasy Pathfinder. I'm going to sneeze in a second. Okay, I didn't sneeze. Ugh. And you have all your classes. Some of them are better than others. This isn't really... I'm not really going to go over this because it's fucking Pathfinder. But this, too, is a derivative from those other games. Yeah. Welcome to all the various Final Fantasy RPGs that have kind of emerged over time that I find fascinating. The other one that kind of came on my radar that people talked about, it's like, oh, this is inspired by Final Fantasy and you should totally take a look at it. I'm like, okay. Was Gubat Banwa. It's a Filipino RPG. And it is directly inspired by Final Fantasy Tactics, Tactics Ogre, Fire Emblem, Ruby, and 4E, Exalted, Sengoku Basra, and Wuxia. People recommended, like, oh, it's like Final Fantasy Tactics. I didn't see it as much, but people kind of like, you have to mention it. If I could find this game, I'd be cool, because it actually looks kind of neat. And I'd be interested to see how it plays. But this was recommended to me to take a look at. But soak in that color. Just soak in that color. Because we're not getting color anymore. Sorry everybody. We're dealing with the Final Fantasy RPG 3rd edition. Now, this is the third edition, lead by Samuel Banner, which we've seen before. Like, wait a second, we've seen Mr. Banner before in another game, who did his own thing, which is like, okay then. Where was the other place I saw Banner? Like, it's very odd, because everyone's kind of working on their own things, but also doing their own ideas. Was he in this one? Yeah. We were working on, Fernando Parker in Brazil, who translated the game to Portuguese, the seed group formed by many of the original members of the Returners. But already without the leadership of Samuel Banner, who was the project leader at the time of 3rd edition, created another version, the FFERPG Seed, more focused on online gaming via IRC. Like, wait a fucking second. And he did his own thing, which is this version. Like, this is Samuel Banner's, his ideal Final Fantasy RPG. Which they were also made to do Seed, and the game impossible to be played on the real table without a computer assistance. And this is very much true here. However, another guy named Alan and his team created the FFRPG D20 based on Pathfinder. Also, started another version, finalized by Dust, who published in 2010 the 3rd edition, the FFD6 system, which we just saw. Another game published by Chicago's Academia Bahamut, a Brazilian cross between Zodiac and the original 3rd edition, which this is the original 3rd edition, but not the 3rd edition of this game. You are seeing the mess that is Final Fantasy RPGs, and I wasn't expecting this at all. I was not expecting any remote amount of this, but there are so many people of that original group, the returners, that spawned every different variation of Final Fantasy RPGs we see today. Anything that says it's a Final Fantasy RPG strictly probably has at least some influence, has a member, a developer, a playtester that was a part of this original assortment. And I find that really fascinating. Now, I'm not going to go over too much in the Final Fantasy role-playing game 3rd edition, because this game is completely fucking white and 400 pages. This game emulates every single aspect of Final Fantasy. Everything. That's what's called love for the game. Now, it gets fascinating because I do genuinely think that people love this game. I think people really enjoy the Final Fantasy RPGs in general that they've made. It's... How do I want to word this? When you take a JPEG and share it constantly, it starts to artifact. When you take that JPEG and you send it through enough times, it becomes weird, it becomes deep fried, something is always broken with it the more you share it. That is arguably what is occurring with all the Final Fantasy RPGs. Except it takes this core concept and has been just reiterated upon, but some people have put it over here, and some people have put it over here, and some people are doing their own thing with it. And it's to the point where you have all these different Final Fantasy RPGs, but using the same core basis for it, or the same core ideas. They look different, they play different, but they're also always kind of going to feel the same in some way. Which is, as I kind of stated right at the beginning of this stream, the perfect Final Fantasy game is not a Final Fantasy game. It has zero to do with Final Fantasy. It just has the feel, it has the ideas, it has the concepts. But if you want to emulate Final Fantasy, these are the games. But do you want to emulate Final Fantasy because you want to emulate the games, or do you want to emulate Final Fantasy because you want the settings? Or neither? Or do you just want to emulate the feeling of Final Fantasy? But what's the right feeling? That's the really messy part about all of these games, is that each of them has a different answer to those questions, and none of them are wrong. Because when I say, we're going to play a Final Fantasy RPG, you're going to get someone who's thinking, okay, we're going to be playing we're going to be playing Ivalice, and we're going to be, I'm going to ride on my Chocobo as I'm going to play a Viera, and I'm going to be happy, and I'm going to be cool. It's going to be awesome. You're going to get another person like, oh, okay, we're going to be playing like a SNES RPG. Cool, we have some assumptions, we have some ideas there. Then someone's going to be like, okay, we're just going to be playing a fantasy game with some like Magitech and stuff. All of those are correct. That's the problem. I think that's one of the biggest issues with Final Fantasy in general, is the fact that it has literally everything in it. There's a lot of fucking Final Fantasy. Hence why this one is a D100 system though. Like, let's not beat around the bush. This is a D100 system. And it is definitely bigger than most. It's a big ass game. And yeah, either will love it or you will hate it. Pretty much the idea. Percentile choice, 95 to 100, 0 or 1 to 10. Don't botch. Don't do it. Just don't. You also need all the different kinds of dice for this game as well, because it has a pseudo separation, and like how to determine your attributes are very different than how to determine anything else. So each attribute has a numerical rating from 1 to 30. The higher the value is, the better the character's abilities in that particular category. Actual value is mainly used for like damage calculation. These don't really mean anything to your skills. Your skills mean everything to your skills. An attribute rating, second rating called your attribute rating, which is ranked from 13 to 100. These will be explained in later detail, because you have 2 attributes per attribute, which are their own thing. And then you have all your combat statistics, because we have every single kind of combat statistic. And then we have all their skills, which skills act as a fairly standard D100 system. We've seen a D100 system before. If you don't know what a D100 system is, are you living under a rock? Don't answer that question. And I think I have a Brazilian in the chat here. You guys also have Final Fantasy RPGs, and find them for me. But if I've learned anything, is that every single game has a Final Fantasy. Like the Brazilians have a Final Fantasy version of has a. Brazil has just like its own Brazilian version of just about any game. I could be just like, Brazilians, fetch me Brazilian GURPS, and Brazilian GURPS exists. Like, fetch me Brazilian VTM, and there's probably Brazilian VTM somewhere. It's not going to be called VTM. It's going to be called something like Portogracio El Vampiro or something. Just offend every Brazilian in the chat. Oh God. Send me a link if you can in the server, and just ping me in it. Ping me in submissions with a link to it. I'll bring it up. But yeah, this is a D100 system. It's pretty standard stuff. Conditional modifiers. If you played a D100 system before, you've already played this game. It's just how everything is done, which things get a little bit odd. Because everyone's divided into action turns. Alright, initiative order. Alright, simple enough. Several sets of actions are required from the participants. Generate initiative again as needed. Okay, status phase. Cleanup portion of the scene. Timing conditions. Most status conditions timer 2 and everything has timings. And here's all the classes and jobs. Do you like classes and jobs? I think you do. This one has by far the largest assortment of jobs. And it's pain. Not gonna lie, it's pain. And most everything is based off of this. Reactions is the most common ability in this carrying situation. The basic formula is base COS plus modifier, evasion, or M evasion. The latter showing the effect. You need like, you're not going to be able to do this on a piece of paper. But if you play online, this game does work, because you can just... Actually, we found the Brazilian. We found the Brazilian RPG, everybody. Brazil acquired. Oh God, it looks as janky as possible. I adore it already. God bless you all. God bless the Brazilian people. But, okay, well, we'll look at it after this. But if you look at this game as not a game to be played on the table. This is not a game you sit around with the boys, with a beer in one hand, looking at the table with D100s firmly clasped in your hand, being like, I am ready to Final Fantasy this beer. Delicious. No. You're playing this game because online. You're playing it on IRC. You're playing it on Discord. Now, basic attacks and offensive follow the same template. Most limited chance of hitting opponent. Require percentile-based skills. Alright, we've got it. We can do skills. Oh no! Damage code. Your damage skill, damage die. Attack with a damage code of 3 times strength. D100, for instance, have a damage scale of 3 and damage die of 10. Multiply the damage skill by the attribute in question, in this case strength, then roll the damage die, adding the total. Now remember when you said attributes can be anywhere from 1 to 30. They weren't lying when they said that. You can go up to very high, hence why there is a literal rule in this game called the damage cap. Now, the absolute maximum damage most attacks and effects may cause is limited to 999 HP. You can only do 999 damage. And then we have all the various things. You know, Hecat's Evade 22, 92 minus 22 would give Rob a COS of 70. Rob's roll comfortably beats adjusted COS, meaning that he hits his target. Hero's Valiant Rifle has damage code of 2 times his agility plus D12. Hero's agility of 10 translates this to 20 plus D12. Modifier for Hecat's arm, in this case 10, the final damage, 20, is subtracted from the Hecat's current hit points. Oh boy. Oh boy. There's more. This game is huge. This game is very bulky, and this game is very, very thick. And you need to kind of embrace that with this game, because you aren't going to do that. You aren't playing this game as like a pick up and play thing. No, you're picking this game up because you are ready to go. You're having a ball, and you're, oh god, look at all the races. And we get to see some of the Viera are in here, Tarutaru, the Numo, Moogles, Dwarf, Elf, Human, Bonga, because the Bongos are everywhere. Always, when in doubt, Bongas are present. This is how you calculate the second attribute rating, which is your attribute times 3 plus 10. That is your second attribute, which anytime you need to make a strength, every time you need to make a check, you need to then do that version, not your attribute version. And someone said, oh, well, the final, the Warhammer 40k RPGs are really good, and they're D100. And I said, yes, they are very good. However, this is not this, because there are so many little calculations you have to do. And I think that's like the big thing with this version of the game, is that it is calculations upon calculations. It's the fact that we have to deal with all of these. Now we're dealing with all of these little things all going through. And that's just something you have to understand. Or here are the combat statistics. You have a hit die. In order to generate starting HP, roll the indicated die, add 30 to the result. And vitality value. Armor. Armor is entirely by adding together arm values of every piece of armor the character has equipped, and then given to the character vitality. But vitality isn't quite that. It's something completely different. Such as all the modifiers, which are all percentage modifiers, or dexterity is calculated by this formula. Mine is calculated by this formula. Accuracy, this formula. Do you want to do this on the table? No. However, if you already have all of this rigged up on like a Google sheet or something, it takes 5 minutes. And that's something that is either going to turn you off completely, or it's going to make you enjoy it. That's it. Like that is something like you have to understand at a core basis of anything. Do you want to play this online? If the answer is yes, I want to play it online, cool, you're going to have fun. It's going to work. Not well, but it'll work. Because there's just so much stuff That's like one of the things. There is so much goddamn stuff to worry about. But at its core, it is a D100 system. A little bit odd, but like wilderness skill, 260 skill points to spend. Jump all the points in there, and it's ta-da, ta-da. Lore and languages, skill text. It's like, oh god. You know, it's like leather gloves, damage code of 2 times your strength, strength of 6, choco ball and leap, have damage code 4 times mag plus DA, mag armor. Goblin punch, red field. Oh, it's like, oh god. Now, you may be wondering, Notepad, my boy, my friend, my comrade, my descamisados. How many levels are in this game? How high can I level up? Now remember, Omega Fantasy had a cap of 10. Just 10. Final Fantasy D6 had a cap, had a kind of its own version of things. Like, you didn't really have like a necessary cap, but it kind of capped out about 10, 15. Not infinite, 99. There are exactly 99 levels in this game. But have no fear. Every 7 levels, up to level 64, you get an ability by your job. Ta-da! Do you like it? Come on. And then it's like, every time your character gains a level, their maximum hit points increased by their job's hit die plus vitality. So, if we do just like a sample, let's just say D3, for example. Let's say D6, we're a mage. Actually, we'll do D8. We're pretty standard. Our average is going to be about 4. So if we do 4 times 99, let's see how much damage 306. We're doing about 396 HP plus our vitality, whatever our vitality score is, which we can only assume to be maybe vitality. We'll be conservative. We'll say vitality of 8, so we get plus 4 to all of that with 99 levels as well. That is 396. Let's do 396 times 2. We have 792 health as a D8 class out, max level. Do you understand the madness? Because it isn't getting any better. It does have the oh, here's the revelation. Talents and skill they didn't even know they possessed. Oh no, critical success. Wowzers. And it's like, oh god, why is there so much? Like, why is there... Oh wow, look at all the starting equipment and depending on your level, and all the invention stipends, all the magic, all the call magic, all the summon magic, all the races. Did you think we could get away from the races? Not at all. We're looking at every single race in Final Fantasy, even down to the Yetis, down to the Q, down to the Ronzo. Every single one is in here. Because that's what we need. Because we're not making a Final Fantasy RPG, we're making a Final Fantasy RPG, not just a inspired RPG. And then all of the jobs, every single one of them has their own thing, mind you. I'm gonna be here for a while. How's everyone doing? Been pretty fun. Having fun, enjoying the day. Okay, we've hit skills. Yes, that is all the various classes, and all of them, you have different things on top of each of them, which you have to consider. And some people are going to love it, some people are going to hate it. And I'm not a fan of it, personally. Because this is really chunky for something that doesn't really need to be as chunky as it is. Mostly when you realize, like, most of the actual, like, skills you get for some of these aren't actually that interesting. You know, it's not terribly fascinating to actually do. Because you're like, oh, well, here's all these black magic, elemental, you know, list, spell list. Like, okay, cool, this is fine. And then it's like intuitive magic, that's it. Like, that is the black mage job. While if we scroll up, we want to do thief. These are all the thief abilities that they get. But magic is also massive and huge and scary and full of every fucking thing you could ever fucking think of because it's magic. I lost my way, oh no. Skills, yeah. Skills, exactly what you think it is. And improve another skill's likelihood of success. You can add synergy bonuses. Oh no, I don't have this. This. It is exactly what you think it is. Don't worry. Oh. What, you think we could get away without listing every single skill? Come on, then. What, you don't like skills? Look at all the skills. Every single one of them. And, technically, you can have something in your weapon slot, your shield slot, your body slot, your head slot, hand slot, accessory slot, inventory slot. And in case you're wondering, Notepad, don't say it ain't so. Yes. Every single one is technically covered. Now, just to give you the kind of the idea of like how big some of these numbers can get. This is a blood sword. This is a tier 5, 58. It does 10 times your strength and damage. So, if we're smart, we're probably going to have a 20 in our strength at this point. So we're doing 200 plus 3d10 damage. You see where the scaling can get a little bit wacky. Like, you definitely kind of hit an exponential value about here. Because suddenly then, like, you see, like, the first big leap in, you know, prices about, like, anytime you switch over from the one tier to the next, you see a big change in prices. I would say about here is where things start getting a little bit wackier. Because by this point, you probably already have a good amount of equipment and good amount of skills and stuff, and you already have your focus. So you're rapidly increasing power. And there are a lot. Case in point. All the different kinds there. Because we need this. Like, that's the thing. You need to have every single one of these accessories because Final Fantasy had every single one of these every single one's got its own things. Don't think you can get away. Don't you think you can get away with not having a crafting system? Like, see, that's the beautiful thing about this, is that you don't need to worry about that. Because what you want to do, if you ever have an enemy that's going to die, you just added extra zeros to the end of their health. That's all you have to do. Wow, look. Wow, guys, I did 300 damage. Shame he has 3,000 health. Like, oh no, he's dying. He has 30,000 HP now. Because that is how you scale a game like this. When you have exponential values. When you have exponential, and when things start multiplying, like, I don't think anyone quite gets the impact of a double. If I do 1 times 5 damage, that's just 5 damage. But if I put 2 times 5, that's 10 damage. That's double the value. With the 3, that's 15. Alright, I'm doing a little bit more damage. Pretty much every even number is when things start getting, like, you hit this point of, like, exponential growth. where at certain points, that number is going to spike heavily. Mostly when it's like, oh, it's 2 times your strength value. Well, 2 times my strength value when I have 5 strength isn't very impressive. However, when I get to 8 strength, it goes from 10 to 16. But if I had 3 times now, suddenly my damage starts rapidly increasing. And every enemy has to compensate to that. Which either is going to be, cool, poggers, I love it, or it's going to be, fuck no. And yeah, there's a crafting system. Of course there's a crafting system. What do you expect? And is it going over literally every single type of wood available? Yes. We finally hit combat at page 190. And this was the one I was like, I'm not going to go over too deeply because it is this much shit in this game. There's so much stuff in this fucking game. It's like, good God, make it end, please. And it just keeps going and going and going and going and going. I would be amazed if anyone has actually... I would be amazed if anyone actually was like, it's time to, like, we're going to play this game all right now. Like, let's do it. I don't think anyone is, like, rushing in here to play this game. I think this was made for a very select few people of that original batch who are like, this is what we need. Which kind of leads into my original point of kind of that descent of that artifacting, where if a few group of people make a game, and then a smaller faction of them break off to make their own thing, that new thing is going to be for them only. And then someone else is going to break off and do their own thing and do this. So it stops being about making a game that's fun for everybody. It's about making a game that's fun for a very few select amount of people. And I think that's like one of the biggest things that affects all of these Final Fantasy RPGs is that they're not made for, I wouldn't say people, but they aren't really designed for anyone else who isn't already playing them. 3rd edition is not an edition for you and me to be like, yay, we're playing Final Fantasy RPG, yay! No. No. It's for them. It's for their group of people, and the people who are going to play that regardless are going to be like, this is great, this is awesome, you did the fixes we wanted. Which any closed circuit loop we can already... To anyone who has ever worked on a project before with the people, the smaller amount of people you're working with who are all in agreement, usually the lower quality things get. He is moving a little bit faster. Now, fun fact about the program I use is, let me boot my face here real fast, is how it works is dependent on the size is how fast the wiggle occurs. And this particular image is actually really small, the way I have it set up. I usually scale everything down, but I don't really need to scale Inspector Notepad down at all. Yeah, it is for the people who play these games. That's really what it is. This is not made for people. These are made for the people who play the Final Fantasy role-playing game 3rd edition written by this particular guy. And it's like, here's the healing skill, and here's some healing fixtures. Here's recovery spring, because Final Fantasy had a recovery spring. Or save crystals. Yes, they have save crystals in this game. Why, you may ask? Why do we have save crystals in a tabletop role-playing game? Because Final fucking Fantasy had save crystals. Other fixtures, consecrated areas, all these different types, and all the different weapon stores, because you always have to have all the different kinds of weapon stores available. Because Final Fantasy did it. Or, how entering a pub is different from entering entering an auction house. It's like, come on. Come on, guys. Guys. Please. You don't need this. You don't need it. But all the different weather effects, it's game mastering, GM basics. Oh god. Know the rules, know your players, watch the clock. Be firm but fair. Have fun. It's pretty standard stuff here. Objective, complications, battles, building interest. Worksheets. We all love worksheets. It's pretty standard stuff. Just a lot of stuff. And this is an entire thing to help you build a game like this. Every single kind of it, and all the different weapons, because we need to make sure we had all the different weapons. All the different armors, all the different parts. Every single, very fucking Asian. Monster peoples. Locations, appearance. This is a huge game. And it's... If you aren't... See, though I will say this game is, by default, a lower quality than the others. Simply because it does not possess Blitzball rules. So, sorry, Final Fantasy role-playing game 3rd edition. You are trash. You don't have Blitzball rules. Though I will say, you are playing this game because you want to play the Final Fantasy game. You want to play Final Fantasy TM, not a Final Fantasy inspired game. The people who are playing this want to have a controller, a thought controller in their mind, and with the little cartridges, and they want to hit the ATB battle system, and that's what they want. There's nothing wrong with that philosophy. It's just a very odd philosophy to have in this kind of game. In a tabletop role-playing game, that's what you have to deal with. And that's when it's its big issues. So, throughout this entire thing, I've been kind of referencing the mother RPG, the first edition of the Final Fantasy role-playing game. This is, I believe, to be the direct descendant from that. This is, if you were to track the history down from the first edition Final Fantasy role-playing game, and just go straight down, this is the latest edition. This came out only about 3 months ago, the 4th edition handbook. And you may be wondering, Notepad, by God, Scott, you just went through the 3rd edition. Why is this the 4th edition? This is the 4th edition of a different strain. One we just went over was written by another guy at a different time. Just giving it the same name. You can tell by that one was called The Final Fantasy RPG. This is called just Final Fantasy RPG. Very different. And this one this is the one, when people said the Final Fantasy RPG, this is the one I actually thought. Or accurately, the 3rd edition. That's the version I had. And this one's probably one of the better put together ones. Just purely looks-wise. It's one of the better ones actually put together. You also notice they use the same images frequently throughout because there's only so much. Just to all of the different versions of the Final Fantasy RPG, and it's changing hands, and people taking their own things, and people just going. I find that fascinating of the original returners have such a massive impact on these games. that it completely destabilized everything coming after. That original group, that original guy who wrote the game, has had an effect for over 20 years on every single Final Fantasy RPG to come out in the West. Now, I was kind of talking about earlier for those just coming in, but when I first started, I was talking about how there technically is not a strict Final Fantasy RPG in Japan. The closest one that we've ever been able to get is things like Al-Shard or Sword World, which aren't Final Fantasy RPGs at all. They are their own thing, with a heavy Final Fantasy influence, but a Final Fantasy influence is D&D, a D&D influence. But they also do their own thing with them. So I find that interesting that we're here in the West, what we get are very tied to the source material, while over in Japan, it's not really. So, do you like latex? Yeah, also, I do realize that they are using their names, which I dedicate my work to all those in love in my life. To all of those in my life I love. My wife, Malix Yishoma, our boyfriend, Semblance, and my guardian's Weaver. Without them, I would not be here where I am today. What the fuck? What the fuck? What the fuck? I didn't read this before. They do have a wiki. They do have Sugoi. I didn't read that before either. I was like, what the fuck? So, play basics. It is a D100 system again, and it's exactly what you think it is. It's a D100 system, and it does go over the basics. However, instead of having a 1 to 5, pretty much a 5% chance of success or failure, you have a 1% chance. It's a result of 0 zeros red as 100. You want good, that's good. Roll a 1, bad. Simple. Design principles, create 2 games. Now, these things are a little bit difficult. Now, avoid downtime. All right. Quick production. Small product and be played in a few options. Try to best describe all the possible options for publishing a game. Be modular. Space for expansions. Allow quicker. I'm going to punch this man here. Create 2 games. I hate this philosophy. Let me tell you how much I fucking despise this philosophy. It's exploration game. The moment of transition between 2 games is a moment of combat. Thus, the emulate spirit. I am divorcing the combat system from the non-combat system to clearly characterize 2 moments. Action out of combat will have other mechanics and function differently to actions in combat. I despise this philosophy. I loathe this philosophy because I feel it doesn't work. I don't think that anyone who ever says, I'm going to divorce the 2 aspects of the game, they're not going to be similar at all. I feel when people say that, what they're actually saying is, I'm going to work on one half of the game and let the other game flounder. Case in point is the new Icon game coming out from Mastiff Press, the guys who did Lancer, even though they abandoned Lancer. I'll let you think on that one a little bit. But it is interesting that you would make that, like, I don't know why people make that, like, distinct assumption, being like, oh, it's like the video games. I'm like, yeah, the video games were different because they were video games. And, like, you're not using the medium to its full effect. video games are constrained because of the code, because of the coding, because of how games are be played. You can't do everything in a game because it is a video game. That's just something that's not a thing that you can do. However, we combine all these together in a tabletop game, I could do something that I may not be able to do. But I'm looking at it being like, wait a second, I have a fly ability. Why don't I just fucking fly? I'm like, all right. Hey, wait a second. I have the ability to, like, break any object, right? Like, yeah, you have the ability to break any object. I'm going to break the object. I'm like, oh, cool. When you kind of start divorcing these two, there come situations like, wait, I can do this in combat, but I can't do this out of combat, which makes sense if you are playing a video game with preset lines of dialogue and preset coding and glitches and all those things. It does not work if you're playing a tabletop game. Do not do this. I'm saying this as a designer, as someone who likes playing games, but don't do this. I will hurt you. Yes, one thing I actually do enjoy is this right here. Choose traits. I actually enjoy this part. I think this is actually kind of interesting. The entire idea is for your group, you have to select 3 traits to indicate how you kind of operate. And they give you different things, such as, hole in his plans, imminent danger, you may spend destiny point to figure out a way to escape. Or the bad. Oh no. Like, each of these give you a little bit of good, a little bit of bad, and it's like, oh, this is kind of interesting. I enjoy doing this because it kind of sets the stage for your party. It also sets the stage for how you, the game master, may want to position things. Being mercenary monster hunters that uphold a reputation, going to be very different than people's hero fighting the nemesis who are also proteges of somebody. That's a very different set of assumptions there for how the game's going to be playing. And I think that's a pretty good idea to get people involved. And I like that aspect of it. This is where things start getting a little bit different when you get to the idea that where the split occurs. If I can actually fucking click the right button. God. Now, the split occurs from the previous game we went over is about here. This game's a lot more narrative focused. And with it being a lot more narrative focused, you get things such as the quirk list. Instead of choosing a race, you have to kind of select it from your quirks. Defines your character's personality and backstory. It's like, all right, cool. How many quirks do we get? We get 3 traits and 3 quirks. Groups traits. All right. So yeah, wait a second. You have to choose 3 traits up here. You have to choose 2 from the group and then 1 of your own. And then quirks are things like you're arrogant. You earn destiny points when you cause problems. Destiny points are back. Don't worry, everyone. You can spend destiny points to do whatever the fuck you want. Because they're your meta currency. They're very valuable and you should totally be using them. But some of these don't mean much except when it comes to the narrative. Or you get things such as dwarf. Like, you may think, okay, maybe being a dwarf makes me stockier, hardier. No, you use destiny points in situations involving explosive machinery and mining. Activities for dwarves are renowned. You go discomfort, making you feel bad in bright light. Whenever this causes you problems, earn destiny points. Yeah, that's what it is. The fact that you're fast. This is where the divide comes in, where it's like, wait a second, I'm a fucking bonga, I'm really super strong, But if I don't select any of the strong boy traits, it doesn't matter. Like, this doesn't matter. You can be a fucking Lalafell and with like jacked up strength, and it just doesn't matter because they're so divided. You have Moogles. You have don't forget about all your intuitive magics. The fact that you were raised by animals. Wow. Uncommon beauty, natural hunter, Anumu, paranoid. All of these, you're enjoying them. Enjoy them. Clap. Now we actually get into where things make zero sense anyway. So you have 4 stats: Earth, Air, Fire, Water. Each stat has value in levels. For every 10 points in that value, the stat earns 1 other level. So those levels, those points don't actually mean much. The levels matter. So everything can be ranked from level 0 to level 25. Some characters of their stat levels is the character level. This does mean these are some of your stats: 52, 108, 80, and 75. Cool. Higher than a stat in their skill points. Oh wow. Stats can be used in tactical combat. Each role in combat uses 1 offensive, 1 defensive stat. The offensive stat for attacks uses speed, finesse. Defensive stat against attacks evade defenders' reflexes and agility. Awesome. Coolio. Neato. Stats are increased by using experience point. The cost of it increases stats value by a single point is 1 plus twice the stats level. So a stat costs 1 experience point per stat level while it's at 0. 3 for when it is 10 to 19, 5 per stat point when it's level 2, and so on. Now, what does this mean? It means that it's very fucking expensive when it gets to about level... Once you hit to about here, so pretty much you get from 20 to 29. Get to 20 to 29, that's 9 times... That's about 9 times 5. You're dealing about 45 XP. 45 XP per. And it only gets more expensive from there. Don't worry. So you want to kind of bump things up pretty quickly or have them higher right off the bat. Feels like choosing a class twice than choosing a race plus class. Oh, Pig! You don't know we have to choose a dual class system as well on top of all of this. Oh, you silly boy. Everybody, let's all laugh at Pig. Yeah, now mind you, this is a completely separate game from everything else. So you can bump up all of your like strength or whatever. It doesn't actually play anything into the actual game. All the various different kinds of skill points. Oh boy, challenges. Okay. Challenge situation. What are we doing? D100 game. That's it. Challenge skill and difficulty. Okay, thus the GM decided challenge failure's chance indicated by 1 to 99. His player must roll a D100. It's a D100 system. If you said it's 30, understand that he has 30% chance of failing and consequently a 70% chance of success. Ta-da! We've done it. Destiny points can be burnt to do things. If you want to spend them. You know, add 20 to a challenge D100 result. Man, 42 spending 2 points. If the challenge is 60, you can spend a destiny point to make it 80. That's it. Feats of heroism lets you just do something. Getting clues lets you do something. Divine intervention lets you do something. Cheat death, do something. That's one of the big things here. Is that this is a very narrative system. These are very determined by, like, the Destiny point systems in this game is very narrative driven. Spending Destiny points to do a thing. Literally, it's like divine intervention. Now we have combat. Roll 3d10. Core the values. Dice roll is total. Dice roll totals is initiative, and roll each dice means the character's actions. After the initiative roll, the round will continue for 10 phases, starting from phase 1 and ending on phase 10. Phases happen sequentially in order. The initiative system in this game is fucking bizarre, and I reread it like 3 times. It's dice roll total is his initiative, and the result of each dice means the character's actions. You technically have 3 actions. You roll your dice, and you get to act on those phases. But whoever has the highest initiative always will act first on that phase. It's weird. I get what they're going for, but it's bizarre. And it's like, that's strange, and why would you ever do that? But why? But why, I ask? You know, the character discards initiative dice and effects are immediate. In action with 0 charge time is a... X phases charging the action. Because yes, it is a very odd situation where you can roll high, you can do a lot of your actions, or you can like wait on them to do other things. I don't know what they were trying to emulate here, because this isn't really like an AT. I think they were trying to go for like an ATB system, like an active time battle, where it's like the idea of like, oh, well, my speed is really high, so I'm acting more frequently. But that doesn't quite work. I mean, I could see something interesting evolving from this, but yeah, it has reaction shot. You can burn pretty much later dice to do things to save your ass. You know, attack rolls and combat rolls. All right, we wanna hit someone. All right, we're doing it. Equipped with a weapon, defensive stats, difficulty 40, and deal weapon damage. That's it. You technically can do a defensive check for this as well. So it'd be following stats: 1 offensive stat, 1 defensive stat, and a difficulty. For example, bow is an air, defensive stat versus air, defensive stat, difficulty 40. Roll as follows: 100 adds the offensive stat value. He will successful if the given result is higher than the difficulty plus the target defensive stat value. Choose not to resist the action is always successful. And it's like, wow, my eyes are bleeding right now. Like, why are we the way that we are? Like, this system is completely different from the one we were just kind of going over. And you also credit if you roll dubs. Always roll dubs. Elements and damage, there's just a lot here. Now, we haven't hit jobs yet. Well, wait, we got more combat rules. Now, jobs are where the fun things go. We love the jobs. Jobs. Now, they do the thing too where they try to like rank them. These mean nothing. The ranks mean nothing. They're just like these broad assumptions for you to understand this character is good at this character is good at this. There's all these are here for. So, scroll down a little bit. Here are our jobs. Here's our HP bonuses. Here's this. And it's like, wow, there's a lot of stuff here. Now, one thing you might have noticed, and I didn't really go over it right now, but I'll go over. This is how you deal damage. I want to just go over how you deal damage as we're going through. I forgot about this. I think it's important. The attackers rolled single digits is added to the damage. 1 to 10. For example, characters did is 20 damage, roll 63 on the attack, hits the target will deal 23 damage. Okay. All damage is reduced by the target's armor. Unless it's magic armor. You know, there's no penalty on the current lower HP than max HP. Okay, so they'll calculate damage. Calculate your base damage. Damage factor by the relevant stat level. Apply action modifier. Some actions do 150, 275, or any other modifier of damage. Okay. Account for strength and weaknesses. Increase in damage by 25 or weaken it by 25%. Which is after you've calculated this percentage. You then add the single digits. And you reduce it by the target's armor, and then you apply the target's modifiers. This is for every piece of damage done. This is one of the games where it is encouraged that you do not play this on person. You play it using an app, or you play it using online tools to do this. Which is, I've talked to people about this. They say it's great if you play it online and you have all the pre-filled stuff on. Don't play it in person. But again, if you consider that every single one of these games was born on IRC, suddenly things start making more sense. It starts thinking like, wait a second. Wait a moment. You made me wonder. Wait a fucking second. If we're playing everything on IRC, we're gonna start building the game around being able to play it on IRC. We're gonna start building the game to not play it in person. Do you see an issue with this? And one thing about jobs is, where is it? Main job and the secondary job determines your HP, MP bonuses and type of gear you can equip. Most active abilities. Giving you secondary jobs for reactions, increase your gear selection, and provide several other abilities to cover up your weaknesses or display. So yeah, technically you can select any variations of any of these. Fire and Earth, all adepts. And the system isn't bad. I like it. It works. These do go up to pretty high levels. Level 60, as you see. It's like, cool, whatever. So we're always going through. It's like, all right. And because we need to have invention, because everyone needs to have a Sid. Nah, baby, it was IRC, man. We must all gather together. You didn't have any groomers back then. It was just weird people. Warrior, because we always have warriors. Let's see, this one has samurai. So pretty much, I can select, I'm going to be a warrior, and I'm also going to be a defender, or I can also be a fencer. Like, you have to pick a primary and then a secondary job to fill everything out. And it's weird. Yeah, and here's all the spells. Don't forget, you can also get all the spells. Always spells. All the inventory stuff. Which they actually even use the same art, because again, they all know each other. All the light armor. Every single type of the white armor. Every single type of there. All the different kinds of weapons. All the different kinds of weapons. All the heavy weapons. Yeah, like this is... Final Fantasy D6 has its influence over this game, which in turn influenced Omega Fantasy, which in turn influenced D6. It is a circle, and it doesn't stop spinning, and they're all together. And this group of people who have been playing the same Final Fantasy RPGs for years are continuing to play Final Fantasy RPGs. These are the same people who do the same things with the same abilities, with the same things every time. Which is... I don't know. It's kind of hard to even judge a game like this. Because what do you do? How do you even judge a game like this? And it's like, how do you judge a game that is not designed for anybody except the people who play it? And it kind of presents kind of an odd situation to think about. Where it's like, at its core, this game is built for no one except itself. Can you judge a game as something good or bad based entirely on the fact that it is not designed for anybody else except themselves. Also, this game is also trash because it doesn't have blitzball rules. I mean, really, if we're playing Final Fantasy, obviously I want my fucking blitzball rules. Actually, is blitz? Come on. No, blitzball is not in here. Wait a second, I need to check something. To the wiki. Where is it? Where's the wiki? There's the wiki dot. Open up the wiki dot. We need blitzball rules. If we don't have blitzball rules, what's the point? So, this is the wiki. And here's the world book. Here's all the other world book. Like, these are literally just a huge amount of options. And oh, here's all the optional rules. Beastmaster, alternate fencers, new quirks. AL-BHED, yeah. Let's see. Do we have any? No. But yeah, you can download the book right here. Right from the wiki. 149 pages, pretty solid. But this was one of the Final Fantasy RPGs that was recommended by my assortment of, you know, Brazilian cat boys I keep in my shed at this point. And here is the D&D 5th edition Final Fantasy Tactics. Let's see. Translate to English. Translate to English. Final Fantasy RPG system. Initially developed by old team of returners. Project soon after. Gained permission to continue their work. Translating and creating material for the Final Fantasy RPG 3.0. 3.5. This is a completely separate thing, a different branch of the game now. And it's its own beautiful thing that does its own thing for its own reasons. Which I'm not like entirely sure like how like valid, like I'm not gonna like read through this because I'm like guaranteed these are broken. Like these aren't correct. But magic of video games on your RPG table. Bungas. Bunga. Elfo. Mithla. Mugel. Numo. Yeah, it's fascinating to kind of understand of like where everything is, how things are doing. Remake new images. Zodiac Age for PS4. Like these are some older ones, like Dissidia. Like they're talking about like, oh no, wow, look, it's the fucking Final Fantasy 15. Or like, yeah, no, it's very odd. God bless Brazil. And this is the also ones for the Final Fantasy 5th edition. No, D&D 5th edition. You know, Final Fantasy Tactics game. Let's see how I can actually like. Yes, I want to translate. Come on, translate this from Portuguese. And yeah, this is 5th edition. It's based on 5th edition, but I don't believe it's actually 5th edition. I think he just took it and just did his own thing with it. Yeah, I do believe that's what he did. Advancimos. Chronomante, Mistako. Summoners, it's... Yeah, these are... Yeah, there's quite a bit. Yeah, God, they have orators. Who the fuck wants orators? Okay, so... As a summary of events... Final Fantasy RPGs... Final Fantasy should be a rich and great resource for people to run games in. They should be something everyone's like, yeah, I want to play a Final Fantasy RPG. And there should be the option of clicking a button and having one to have what you want to get out of those games. The fantastic, the wild, the weird. It should be really easy. But because of the influence of a single group of players and the community that spawned around them called returners, we have so many of these different family lines of who's getting inspired by who. Well, back in 2012, this person asked this person to make this version of the game, so he just made his own version to do his own thing with. But then this person made his own game to do his own thing with it, and it's now this. And well, this is the Final Fantasy RPG, but no, we're the true Final Fantasy RPG. But that one's called Zodiac, which is its own different variety of Final Fantasy RPG, written by the guy who wrote the first edition of the Final Fantasy RPG, but not the Final Fantasy RPG. It's the other Final Fantasy RPG. Just give me a good Pokemon game. There is no good Pokemon game. I think that falls into the same conundrum. I might do a Pokemon Curious Case actually, just because there's so many different kinds of fucking Pokemon game out there. But I don't really think they're squabbling cliques. I think it was in 1999 when it came out. I think these guys made something and then got older. Different design changes, different ideas, different things of a very limited. You have a very limited amount of people who work together on something, but then that thing gets bigger and everyone starts getting different ideas about what it should be. And then someone leaves the project because they don't like where things are going, or they just have a falling out with someone, and then they make their own version. Well, is that the true version, or is that the fake version? It's 90s 2000 stuff is actually really hard to find because it is buried underneath so much stuff. And I have a few games, I have a few RPGs in the franchise games from the 90s that are their own beautiful disaster area. But a lot of those things of like, I would say pre 2005, things start getting a little bit messy to find because I don't think people ever quite realize the fact that it's 2005 even 2000 2005. YouTube wasn't a thing even. Discord was a glimmer in someone's eye. Skype was the shit. Skype was new. No one knew that shit was gonna work. Just the fact that like, you had to contact everyone on IRC channels, and it was these websites were like Wikidots that have not been updated in a decade. And like that was the weird thing when I was going through TG's Dusty Shelf, the TG Dusty Shelf projects, because you look through them and you find some of these games which are a decade old. They haven't been touched in over 10 years. And you look at them being like, good God, what happened to you? Like, they're still up because it's a Blogspot article. And unless they delete it, it's not going anywhere. But what happens when Blogspot shuts down? Like, what happened if you do get get a website, but it's like an early 2000s website? Like, they aren't going to do anything with it. Like, it was surprising to me even when I found out about like Omega Fantasy and that is that they had a Discord, and it's a pretty good sized Discord too, of people who like those games. And it's not like thousands of people or something, it's only a couple hundred, but it's like, huh, 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 huh. It's older RPGs are like older fan RPGs even are really hard. difficult to get. Like, people I find it really odd of how good we have it now. The fact that I could just go on itch.io and find a bunch of indie RPGs for dirt cheap. The fact that I can go on drive-through RPG and do that. Back in the day, you wanted to do this. No, you had to pass that shit around like it was going out of style with your fucking dial-up internet. Like, these things were written out probably in an IRC channel because you can't, like, send a 30 megabyte. Yeah, 3.5 optimization forms are dying out. Hell, Giant in the Playground. Everyone kind of shits on Giant in the Playground, but yeah, like, let's see. Hello, Rick. How are you? We want to do. Yeah, 2003 is when Giant in the Playground emerged. And out of anything, I think, like, that's one of the few that have survived over the years, but even then, like, that's slowly dying out. Yeah, he's almost 50. He's been doing shit for years, man. It's 2003 doesn't sound that very long ago, but that was 18 years ago. There is a child who was born in 2003 who's going to college. That baffles my brain. And I know I'm bringing a little bit of politics stuff into it, but bear with me. One of the big sadnesses, dealing how today is 9/11, was one of the last guys killed in Afghanistan when that bomb went off in the Kabul airport was a kid who was 20. And it was kind of that weird, poignant moment where everyone thought, being like, it's really sad when you realize some 20-year-old kid died. Like, some kid died at the start of this. This child was born, raised, enlisted, trained, and got deployed to Kabul to die in the exact same war. Someone 20 years ago. And it's weird when you think about it like that. And kind of bringing everything back full circle, we don't make it feel like these things, like, 5 years ago even feel important. Hell, 2016, man, the world, we could do whatever we wanted. PBTA, man, PBTA is cool. This is hip. This is something brand new. The indie revolution's going on right now. Now look at it. I hate PBTA. I despise it because it's everywhere. 5 years it did that. And in 5 years, I think we'll still see the Final Fantasy RPG. I still think we'll see it. However, I think it's going to evolve into a point where it's not going to be the same people. Someone's going to get older. Someone's not going to want to do it anymore. I mean, hell, the one guy in the last game we looked at, in the 4th edition game, said he had his wife and he had a family, which is like, wait a second, you have a family, you have a job, you're an adult person who does adult things. You probably started this when you were a teenager, hanging out on IRC with your pals, but now it's been 20 years. They're still working on it. And I can do a full rant on PBTA easy. Look on YouTube, look at my Glitter Hearts review if you want to see my thoughts on PBTA. It's fascinating though, and kind of like as a summary to this Final Fantasy stream is that I think it's the sins of our past will always come to haunt us. And I think the reason why we have the Final Fantasy RPGs and like why they are so crunchy and why they're so thick and why they're so odd and like where's the Final Fantasy aspect, but it's overwhelmingly Final Fantasy, but kind of Final Fantasy 7, kind of Final Fantasy 8. I think it's that way because of people 20 years ago deciding that's what Final Fantasy RPG is going to be like. And everybody surrounding them to do that Final Fantasy RPG method. And will we ever see like a proper Final Fantasy game? I don't think so. Will we find, if I look hard enough, can I probably find a D&D 5th edition book on Ivalice? Yeah, easy. Because the perfect Final Fantasy game is your game. It's the game that you want to run. All the weird quirkiness about them. Well, with that, solemn look on life, we get to do the unfun part now. We get to go to Kickstarter. Oh boy. Let's go to Kickstarter. I wonder what's on this beautiful website. That's hilarious. It got funded. Yes. Now I wonder what's on. It's on Kickstarter, guys. Who's ready for Kickstarter, right? I mean, Kickstarter's such a fun and exciting adventure for the whole. Oh God. Dice frames. Cool. Also, this crazy fucker. He's back at it again. This. I love this man. This man deserves everything. It's Bellinnock miniatures. They are. I mean, I gotta give him credit. I mean, it's literally just not like pornographic like the last few. Like. Now, this person has been. Wait, this isn't who I think it is it? No, it's not who I think it is. 0 out of 10. Do not care. There is one of my. There is one guy on here. Yeah, we don't talk about the dice frames. Don't talk about them. Don't question it. Don't question it, pig. There's one guy. He is a Mexican guy. He does STLs, and he's like sexy pumpkin girl. I'm like, yes. Yeah, I'm actually kind of happy with this one that it's got funded, because this guy does a fuck ton. Like, Canvas Temple has a lot of games. They're very fascinating, and it's a hex and shit game. And I've been meaning to want to get into hex and shit games. And I've been like wanting to like look deeper into them and like understand them a bit more, because I think that would be kind of fun. But like, this is literally what the game is. Like here, yeah, game with a box rather than a folio, or like playing cards. Cool. It's a hex and shit. Like Canvas Temple, I looked at these guys earlier. That is what their games are. That's like all of them. It's like Stalingrad Solitaire, Atlantic Wolves, Watch on the Rhine, Siegfried Line Campaign. It's all of these like hex and shit games. And I'm like, shine on, Crazy Diamonds. Like, he's made his money. He makes it every time. Not a single thing. I've never heard a bad thing about these guys. So I'm like, you do you. That's always the funny thing with Kickstarter is hex and shit. Hex and chit. Shit. In the Navy. You can see the 7 Seas in the Navy. STL is now a card game. Oh no, customers 0% funded. I always gotta look here. Let's. The adults from the hospitality industry. Oh, this looks good. Veronica. All right. We're on. Veronica Kimmel. I am a 23-year-old woman from Poland. I live in Scotland for 2 years now, and I love it. Updates. Communication. What again? Space. Very competitive. Oh no. Unfortunately, it's not timelines. Timelines will never. Everyone press F in chat for Timelines, the greatest RPG ever that got killed because of trolls. Oh god. The misery, the pain, the agony. Engine builder games. I'm not seeing really any RPGs like make their appearance. A lot of card games. Oh, tiny dungeon. All right. Yeah. I like Tiny D6. It's made its funding goal already, and it looks Tiny D6 compatible. Oh wow, look, it's Morkborg. Oh no. Oh no, look. It's Morkborg again. Is it 5e? Mothership. Is Mothership the new hotness, I wonder? Tournament Fishing, the deck building card game. Thanks, fellas. Yeah, it's Timeline's the greatest Kickstarter ever. He wanted like 10 grand for something like was a Word document. I'm like, yes. Just this man deserves everything he gets. Let's see. Oh, a Tactical Lumen TTRPG. You didn't write any of this, did you? Hello, Mr. Reinhardt. I wish to know more about you. Oh no! What are some Mr. Nopal, what are some RPGs that do factions well, and are they all called Rain? Well, most of them are called Rain variations. Um, I think Stars Without Number has like a decent way of doing it. There are a few OSR games that like handle them not well, but they handle them. Like the thing is, you can like factions are really hard to do. Like fun fact, factions are really hard to do and very annoying to do. And I will say that about any time. I mean, I would like this game. I think that's kind of interesting. Like, is it like an RPG or is it like a board game? Because it. Lumen called Operatives 3 stats, Smash Slice, Cyber. I'm looking at this and I'm like, just my brain is trying to process it because it looks like it's a really simple game, but they're like, this is what they're selling right here. They're selling this campaign on it. Like everything else doesn't matter. They're just selling the campaign. But each time you face a faction, new enemies unlock, requiring you to change up tactics. Or new power. What the fuck is this? Are you trying to sell a video game? That's really weird. This is really funky. I mean, I like the look of it. It's just I don't get what you're selling. Mr. Reinhardt, what have you done? Oh, gratitude. Lens of body aura. Oh, you're from Linwood, i.e. inhuman. GMs aren't just storytellers, we're world builders. Oh god, it's pretentious. Oh no. I think we don't have... So it's a... Okay, this is kind of weird. Alright. Oh. I see. Oh, that's that. I don't care. Oh, the culling killed 30% of men worldwide. Frail, impotent, brittle-boned. Solve problems of reproduction, but the damage cannot be easily... Most of the men who are left are male only by tradition, genetically above... What the fuck? Pumped with testosterone, even though... What? Sorry, I'm having a fucking stroke reading this guy's games. I don't know. I mean, I guess it's a body horror game. But it's a body horror game where you become... Smart women in lab coats solve the problems of reproduction. Now... Like, fuck everything. Smart women in lab coats. Like, I always get, like, bamboozled with these, like, with some of these people. Like, this game isn't even out yet, either. Like, it's June 2021. Actually, no, it'd be out 3 months ago. Like, what the fuck? Feeling stress in the player. Yeah, I feel stressed, too, if I became a fucking... Like, get my dick ripped off. Hackable resolution. Oh, no. Attempt an action, you roll a d6 and try to get equal or greater than the fear dice. You succeed. If you fail, you take damage equal to the number shown on the fear die. Oh. You can never die without your own explicit consent. Oh, no. Your ability to hear out one of your... Rather, most of the time you make a sacrifice, you choose death. Friends will fight the corpse. Must fight the corpse that used to be you and return as a haunt. You are not out of the game. Rather, become observer that can spell haunt dice to replace either rolls of your friends or the fear die itself. Oh, also, here's the beautiful thing. See this right here? Y the Last Man. I liked Y the Last Man for like the first the first half of Y the Last Man. And then I read the second half of Y the Last Man. I didn't like Y very much after that. It got really stupid. Like, my dopey chocolate. Yeah, my dopey. Like, I don't know why this is, like, is that literally the reason why there's, like, there's just a giant dog? Like, there's just a... What? As a reward for this... Wait, that makes... Literally, there's just this giant note being like, there's just giant 30-foot tall golden retrievers. They just are there. What? My... What the fuck is this game? I don't get this guy. I'm very confused about this man. Also, I'm gonna shoot anyone who makes a fucking Lumen game at this point. Lumen's getting really annoying. Alright, so my eyes are bleeding over. This is a... I mean, if it was like dog, God is dog, I mean, that would be funny, but it's not really. Kingdom Cost, board game, board game, board game, a hybrid deck game, project we love. 748% over. Jeez, fucking Christ, who's doing this one? Richard Garfield, you crazy bastard. Not again, Mr. Garfield. Mr. Garfield, put down that gun. You still have to... Weren't these Soulforge digital trading card game? Yeah. Ascension Online. They're making another... They're making another board game. I mean, okay. Cool. So who did Keyforge? Richard Garfield. Yeah. Richard Garfield, can you please stop making card games, please? Board game, board game, board game, board game, board games, card games. Duncan Rhodes made $1 million. Holy fuck. Yeah, Uncle Duncan. Aha, Keyforge. Yeah, Keyforge. Yeah, Duncan Rhodes Painting Academy, Tooth and Coats. I mean, Duncan does his thing. I sure do like Duncan. He's also made all these. I think that's my bet. Baron von Evil. Sir Coates with sword and alt pose mini. Princess Sophia with a battle pug mini. Like, Duncan, what are you doing? Duncan, put down that gun, please. Duncan, please. We get it. Crazy kegs. Like, I'm not really seeing... Oh, yeah, 5e. And the Cannon Farthill's player guide for 5e and Pathfinder 1e. Why is it not Pathfinder 2nd edition at this point? Where was that one? Tactical card game, STL. Jesus, that's a lot of STLs. The game of life and education and financial by the game of life. Wait a second. I don't think you can call it the game of life. Wait a second. Is this just the game of life? No, it's not just the game of life. It's just conveniently named the game of life. It's just Monopoly. I'm thinking it's like Monopoly meets the game of life. The actual game of life, not the Mexican version. That's... Fuck, okay. Oh no. I see Mexican dollars. I love Mexico. Mexico, shine on, Crazy Diamond. What the fuck is this? He's got his money. Like, this man's doing better than us. Wow. I mean, even so, come on. It's like something feels vaguely menacing about this box. How much he's made his money. He only needed like 7.5 grand for all this. Fuck. I wonder if he's got stuff at home. The burst system. And I'm going to tell you something about the burst system, is that it really doesn't mean anything. Because guess what? It's also it needed $59 to be made. Like, tell me, Dennis Certiquist, allowed to play hard time fitting into very busy, spending 6 to 8 hours? Am I spending 6 to 8 hours, 4, 3, 2, or even 1s a month? The system is for you. You are not one of those hard time fitting game sessions. You are apparently not so busy schedule, never fear. You mean the way I've been playing? Like, down to 3 hours. Bitch, I've been playing RPGs for under fucking 2 hours. Yeah, I... Shine on. Like, he's doing something. Key points of burst. Agnostic, easy to learn. What's the numbers like? 30 backers there. Like, there's got to be like a big... There's got to be some big-ass backers. Yeah, $12. $12, but... Yeah, okay. I'm like 5 community copies. Our favorite... Like, I don't think I trust the Swedish anymore. What? I remember seeing this. Yeah, okay. So this was burst. Did you want more money for this? Tell you wow, you wanted a lot more money for this. Oh, sweet Jesus. Look how much money you wanted 1,400 for this originally. Why did you cancel it? Ah. Ah, Mr. Smart Pants man. Mr. Oh, this man was a very smart boy. He did a thing, and what that thing was is that he canceled his system so it looks better. Then he re-put it up there for $0 fucking dollars, pretty much, and he's already made over, and he's probably going to get more by the end of the 14 days. Because this is the true amount of money he needs. Like, he needs 1,200. Actually, he needs 1,400 in truth. But he's banking on the fact that he's going to get this much, because this is how much it's probably going to cost. It probably cost him like $1.50. This doesn't matter. So that's actually pretty ingenious. Scummy, but ingenious. And we've already been kind of gone over these ones. There's not actually that much on the whole. Yeah, not much on the Kickstarter sphere. Driven into darkness. Okay, and let's customize simultaneously resolution of actions. Oh wow! Jesus, that's a face. Quick play beta version available free. Define focus on usability. Polish and presentation. Fun gameplay. Driven to darkness are the open player facing one roll D20 system. Okay, it's a D20 game. All right, what's the system like? It's developed with an eye toward reducing mechanical steps involved. For example, single dice roll, martial characters slanging the entire front line of an entire force can result in casting multiple spells and determining how well a character defends against spell effects. What? What? How? Fucking how? That's my question. I mean, yeah, I mean, cover art's neat, but it's like, what the fuck is this game? Like, that's my question. Like, what the fuck is going on? Oh, he's Australian. That makes... Also, 50 days to go. I mean, I gotta give this man credit for being ambitious. Personalized paper miniature for 100 AU. 250. Play a game with the lead designer. 500. for one battle. $500. Actually, what's 500 AU to USD? What's 500 Australian dollars to USD at this point? It's Jesus, Australia, your money is worthless. 369. What's actually the 1-to-1 conversion? 74 cents on the dollar. Oof, fucking oof. So it's about, you need about $350 for fucking that. Jesus Christmas Christ. He posted an entire craft character evolve naturally over the course of the story. I mean, I like the art, I like the idea, I just don't know if the mechanics are gonna hold up. But yeah, I'm interested, and actually, you know what I'll do? I'll keep this on my saved and see where it goes. Used to not have colors. That's awesome. Beautiful. Turn-based JTRPG. This is just an RPG, isn't it? Yeah, that's just an RPG. So, we're going to go to the other sadness place. Let's go to Itch. Yay! Everyone cheer! We're going to Itch. Yay! Oh, we're to Itch. This is probably going to be short. Like, I don't think there has been really much. Community activism and $15 fucking dollars. Oof. Wow. Wow, I hate it. So build it, so open-ended character, build a community, comic book story, no pain tourism. $15 USD for, oh, that's gonna be fun to read. Alright. Baka mitai. Gubat Banwas, here we are again. Forged in the Dark, Solar Riding Game, Snooms! No, I'm not going to the furry section. No, you don't. Actually, you weren't here for that, were you, Pig? We looked at Gubat Banwa actually earlier. It is very Filipino. However, the thing is, it was based off of Final Fantasy Tactics, actually. So it kind of got put on my radar for this stream in particular. And it's looks interesting, and I like the art of it. I like the idea of it. I'm just very curious about how it plays. And I have a feeling that's not really going to be as, like, cool and hip as it's, like, trying to make itself out to be. Bloodstained Sea in the Midst of a Storm, because it serves Datu and the Blasphemous to your Sultan. The war drama role-playing game. Emphasis on relationship with other warriors, with loved ones, and the intense inter-polity politics that comes with other polities. It's loved ones killing each other slowly, orders and emotions, best friends dueling atop a mountain amidst the storm, ideology to bring them to head. Yeah, it D8 rolling system, casting with lots of crocodile teeth that meant to invoke the casting of lots with crocodile's teeth that pre-colonial Filipinos would do to divine fate. Yeah, no, this is, it'd be Gubat Banwa. Like, thing is, like, I'm confident this is a Filipino. Actually, how long is this on sale? Let's do it quick. Offer ends in 8 months. Yeah, nah, I'm good. I'll maybe buy it later. That's not a sale at that point. That just is the price. I love sales that go on for like a year. It's great. Wow, you can actually buy Apocalypse World now. I don't know why you would, but you can buy, in fact, Apocalypse World here. Don't buy Apocalypse World. Just don't. Lady Blackbird. We all like Lady Blackbird. Single unique power. Yeah, pretty standard stuff. Nothing really is like jumping out at me as like, this is some weird shit that you should totally look at. Pretty standard. I still need to do Beam Saber because Beam Saber keeps making the rounds and I need to laugh at it. Oh wow, look, it's this one. It's her again. The one who wrote my dog, who wrote the game where she vaguely wants to have sex with her dog. Which kind of freaked me out reading it. Let's see, Dream. For Karen RPG. Adventure game. Would fill with strange hidden treasures. Wow. Which in turn is based off Knave and Into the Odd. Wait a second. Okay, it's not based off Into the Odd, it's based off Electric Bastion Land. And then Knave. So technically this game has a three-step history to it already because it's based off Karen and now it's based off this. God, that art looks terrifying. Oh, wait, community copies. Hello, community copies. Lame. Will I look at it? Probably not. I just... Oh, Yokai Hunter Society? I actually looked at Yokai Hunter Society last one of these. It is a game. I'm not a fan of it. I do have the script. I do have the audio ready for that video. To summarize my thoughts on Yokai Hunter Society, way too thin for what it should be doing, and what it doesn't commit at all to its setting, which is a big issue for it. It says we are doing this specific era of Japanese history, the early Meiji, the weird time like late 1800s. But it has things like cars, has revolvers, has likes a lot of rifles. It is not a game about that era. It is a game about looking like it is about that era. Like that is a distinct thing that you have to remember. It is not about the era. It is about looking like it. Fantasy Cyberpunk. Wow, look, it's. I wonder what this game is. Maybe I don't know. I wonder what this game is influenced by. I don't know. It's almost like something called Runners in the Shadows does maybe have like a little bit of connotation to it, and I don't know. I don't get where that is. I know, really wacky, really fucking wacky. Never thought about it. I don't know. I don't know about you guys. Murky Bog. Yeah, here. Welcome to Murky Bog. Yeah, this is the entire game, by the way. This is all it is. Like, do you expect anything more? Like, this is literally all it's going to be. Like, I don't know what you're, like, thinking it's going to be. Escape from... it's my favorite game ever. It's Thirsty Sword Lesbians. Not really about Thirsty Sword Lesbians. But yeah, it looks like we're... let's see. Is there anything new? Nah, not really. Let's just do just most recent. What is the most recent game to come out? Power armor assholes for Sledgehammer. Never heard of Sledgehammers. What's this game about? Rules like grim, dark fantasy role playing. Oh wow, look, it's another one. I would have never thought I would see another one. Oh wow. Am I a bad person for doing this? Maybe. Do I care? Not really. Like, design is my passion. Yeah, Gubat, like, Gubat looks interesting. I would want to look a bit deeper into it to get, like, a good idea, but it's like, eh. Do I care enough for that specific kind of game? Eh. Queasy Query Quest, the Black Drink, Conversation Caper. Oh, wow, I would never thought about it. Oh, my God. Sometimes the internet is about communication. Wow. I would have never fucking thought. OSEs, Old School Central, Roadspire, Dracula. Oh, Dracula Owes You Money. A honey heist game. You know that pretty, like, 2-page game? I'm assuming it's a D6 game. Yeah, duh, we're translating this from Portuguese. Afro-futurist urban fantasy game, picking up elements of Afro-Brazilian mythology. Body a cub, sent from Araxis with a fantastic power to struggle to find its place in the ruins of the city while beating up evil spirits. Currently, the game is in crowdfunding. Why is it... Alright, looks pretty simple. Do you have anything else, Majuba RPG? No, you don't. Very dull, Majuba RPG. So, it's another Afro-futurist Brazilian RPG. Hello, phone. No, hello, Benny Helicopter. Let's see. Do we have anything fun and exciting? Jipei Chong. Jingpai Chong. Business card. 4-player game of tic-tac-toe. Playing mahjong. Wow! Wow! You've managed to... Don't worry. I'm going to try to sell tic-tac-toe to people. Yeah, I'm not really seeing anything too fun and exciting. An adventure for Deathblow? What's Deathblow about? I find it fascinating to find these games. Gang Warriors, Concrete Wasteland, News Reaper City. Emphasizes narrative over crunch. It's always narrative over fucking crunch. It's always this. OST, sounds and drum machines, of course. Alright, well, I think that's going to be just about it. I'm curious to see. I don't think there's anything going to be, like, really jumping out of me right now. Oh, yeah, we also have Necrognosis Evangelion. Fun fact, it's Necronica, except worse. It's just worse Necronica. I did get a free copy already of it, because I'm like, I need it. Yeah, that's... Welcome to a Powered by Hydra setting. Oh, what? Nani, is that a mech game? A mech game in this future? Powered by Hydra. Powered by Hydra setting. Like, what the fuck is Powered by Hydra? Hydra system. Okay, that's not Powered by Hydra. Let's... Okay, coming soon. This is no, that's definitely not it. That's a D&D supplement from like 5 years ago. What the fuck? I've never heard created in the new Hydra system. Created for more Hydra system allows players in game runners tell dynamic cinematic. I've never heard. Did you make it? You made it, didn't you? Like you made this, didn't you? What about emphasizing actually playing the game? Some dude. I actually know some of the translators for Necrotica. I'm in a Discord with them. Nice guys, really nice people. They did not appreciate when I said like, "Yo, yeah, no, someone might be paying me literal money to like make Necrotica stuff," and be like, no." I'm like, yeah, fuck you. I'm getting paid money. I'm getting paid $100 to pretty much change fucking names." Wandering Pilgrim Games. Oh, I like Hydra System. Yeah, they made Hydra System, didn't they? They literally have nothing except the Hydra System. See, this is why I hate sometimes. I have nothing but hatred. A powered by Hydra game. There's no other Hydra game out there. This is the only Hydra game. But this is what we have. Like, it's powered by Hydra because you want to make it something like bigger. Oh, that's a good start. It's DMD, D&D, D&D. Holy shit, you do a lot of D&D stuff. Wow. Path of the Giant Kin, Barbarian, like Devils in the Details. 5th level. Adventure modules, Jeremiah Cooper. It was the Western Expanse. Guess what? It's a Western game. Yeah, and then TTRPG hacks. Okay, what have you hacked? Guts and Glory of Honey Heist. Because Honey Heist is a game. Support us. Tell me what you do. What do you make on Patreon? Nothing. You literally have nothing. Oh, hello, Mr. Swordsfall. It's been a while. How do you make you motherfucker are still making money on there? This is really annoying. Really stupid. Yeah, he hasn't moved anything. Interesting. So these guys have. Do you have anything on your blog right now? Yeah. So they are. Looks like they are. They're trying to make their own PBTA called the Hydra system. For $5, they want the quick start guide. Yeah, fuck you too, mate. So yeah, they are trying to make their own PBTA. The thing is, they're not even 5e. They're not even 5e classes. 5e classes at least take like some time to do. They're subclasses. They're charging $5 for. I don't know, but it's like a Hydra setting. Like I don't know what the game is, but it's what they're doing here is that they want you to make their own stuff, and what they want to do, the goal, is fairly simple. So pretty much you create a simple hackable RPG. That's step 1. Step 2 is have people make games for that. Actually, I wish is make popular game for that system. Get other people to make popular stuff. Reap reward. That is the goal with these things. Because you are over-incentivized to make a generic system for people to do their own stuff with that you can then reap the benefits of it. The problem is, this part, like, make popular game, sometimes these games just, like, die in their fucking sleep. Like powered by, like, founded in follicles, the beard RPG that we looked at the other week. Like, that game is, like, no one's going to give a shit, and, like, if anyone's making it, it's going to be them. I think they want to do the Hydra thing, like, oh, we're powered by Hydra. And so, since it's powered by Hydra, you can just slap that at the bottom of anything. Like, oh, this is my powered by Hydra game. You know, it's the goal is to have it. That's why it's like that's why Evil Hap has this, the powered by lesbians thing, is just so they can now have their own. Like, you give us credit, you offer new text you create on essentially the same license so others can build on it too. Now, the interesting thing about this is because this exists here, they no longer have to cite anything else. That's the thing usually what happens with these systems is that they are so light that nothing matters with them. And it's like, oh, well, we're a light narrative-driven system. Like, what does that mean? What does a light narrative-driven system do? It's usually like, oh, well, roll a d12 and something happens. You can't have any hardcore mechanics in it, because the hardcore your mechanics get, the harder it is to hack. And nobody wants to hack something like this. Is the name choice for Hydra just Herder? We are Hydra joke. If you want me to be conservative, yes. Because it's a few D12s, game runners, lore keepers. If I were to be conservative, and if I were to be, you know, a bit mean about things, the idea would be, you know, anytime you type in Hydra, because people are making Hydra jokes, you can then slap it on there, and it's like, oh, it's powered by Hydra, it's powered by this, or, now mind you, powered by is probably the worst one you could go by these days. I mean, you could probably do, like, ahead of the Hydra or something. Like, there's no good way of doing it. Like, naming a generic system sucks. But, like, it's a Hydra system. The makers of Thirsty Sword lesbians make me depressed. I mean, I'm happy. I mean, I've been reaping the fucking rewards. Like, here's the notepad experience. So if you go to the YouTube studio, welcome to my channel dashboard. 121 subs. We're doing good. We're making numbers. Now, my highest viewed content currently is at almost 1,600 views, and it is the Thirsty Sword Lesbians video at this point. Actually, we've actually hit over 100 for the Little Opinion on DVV. That's actually pretty cool. Necronica has actually surpassed Morkborg by 2, but, like, the TSL has, like, rocketed, has done its numbers. It wasn't as bad as it was, like, when everyone started posting stupid shit on Twitter. Like, when they started doing that, then the numbers, like, spiked rapidly and, like, really weird. Like, it was like, oh no, oh no. But yeah, numbers wise, we're doing pretty good. Actually, fun fact about the SCP game. If we go here, this is the actual, like, designer of the game. So this is, like, the designer of the game. He left a comment, and I actually really respected him for that, because he, like, he agreed with some of the points I made, and I also, and like, the way he explained it made a lot of sense to me. I'm like, yeah, I understand why you are doing, like, why it is the way that it is. Let's see. Yeah, the Sigmata video usually, I haven't really got any traction. Like, let's see, what's the best little, like, of all the little opinions, uh, strictly speaking, like, Necronica's pretty, like, what's the least popular? Like, Eorus Essence is the least popular because that one just came out, but, like, Saga of the Icelanders, like, did nothing. Nobody gave a shit. Like, I was surprised Tokyo Nova isn't that high up. I'm surprised Maid didn't get higher, but welcome to fucking Maid, I guess. Like, no one gives a shit about that. Oh, yeah. People... oh, yeah. No, it's... yeah, no, I wouldn't be surprised. Like, the guy who made Eoris is a fucking soup. Like, if you ever see a picture of that man is like fucking hyper Chad. And yeah, Sachika. It's because of the things that were said on Twitter. A lot of people came in, and God, there was a lot of gamer comments. And I'm like, oh no. And I tried to, like, hey guys, this isn't quite right. Like, but it was like, this isn't gonna work anyway. I look at it. Make a Hollow Live video for free numbers. Uh, that reminds me, I need to find a stream to make myself as entertaining as possible. But the problem is, I'm not actually that funny. I just bounce off you guys and make shitty jokes. But I can technically, by sheer technicality here, Pick, I can apply to V Shoujo. I will become the next V Shoujo girl. Don't worry. I will become that. I will become the next pink cat. Even though I am neither like a sexy anime girl or just a man who has given up. Like I'm a notepad with a dream. Not even a very good one at that. But yeah, like Necronica's, this one's, people fucking love the Necronica video. Morkborg gets pretty good. Like, likes, dislikes, pretty average across the board. Like, usually games I shit on a little bit, people get madder at, and I don't blame them because I'm like, I'm shitting on a game you enjoy. What was the one that kind of like bamboozled my brain? Yeah, Hollow Earth Expedition is like, man, I remember playing this game. I'm like, yeah, Hollow Earth was good. This kind of got fucked over by time. Oh no, oh no! I will become the pink cat. But thank you all for watching. Hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and hopefully things go well. Two things, actually. One, this next week is going to be Notepad's Media Week, otherwise known as I'm not going to be streaming at all this next week. I am, however, going to be taking in as many movies, shows, manga, anything I've been behind on. I'm going to watch. I'm going to hang out, I'm going to watch, I'm going to read, I'm going to do everything. The goal is to build up my list, because recently, my list has been a little bit waning in more than a few ways. It's been a little bit, it just hasn't really been able to expand that much. I just been busy with stuff, so the numbers start slowly dwindling. So it's like, okay, I need some more ideas. So technically, if you are in my server, feel free to leave a suggestion in submissions. Just leave a suggestion for a game that you maybe want to see. I know one of my Brazilian friends, Sleeps, actually, we had a discussion last night about Kill 6 Billion Demons, hence why we have God-killing swords on here. I don't know how I want to do that yet, but it's there, definitely. It's going to be very narrative, though. Some of these are that like have like deeper ideas than others. Technically, what I should do is put the Boat Sluts game here. Deep Blue Girls. Deep Blue Girls, which Deep Blue Girls is done. You can play your own boat girl if you feel like. And technically what I need to do is the Waifu Core SRD. But this is the current list. After Media Week is done, we're going to be starting on Dark Corners and Old Tomes. We're going to move into Project Tactics Flag Bearer, and then we're going to be doing Oji-san, and then it's going to be another thing of democracy. Hopefully you all are ready for another round of Notocracy, as all of the misery that goes along with it. As for everything else, we're doing pretty good. The only games that are like physically possible to undertake at this time, like outside the ones already on the list, like technically, like some of these, like the big think ideas, just don't actually have that much going for it. The Magical Girl game doesn't have anything with it. 100 Lotus Blaze doesn't have anything with it. It's pretty much just going to be me rewriting Icon the way I would want it. Olichinbara looks stupid. Someone recommended it. Last 6 shots, I came up with an idea in the middle of the night. I'm like, that sounds funny. God Killing Swords, literally a discussion with a Brazilian man. So, any ideas, you tell me, and I will add them to my list. Add them to my sadness pile for people to enjoy and to weep for. And there are people playing games in my server as we speak. So, this is what I have to deal with. So, thank you all. Hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. Godspeed, good luck. You do still owe me $30. I actually haven't been able to release that game because I still not get that $30 yet. So, Godspeed, good luck. And hope you all have